As George Bernard Shaw rightly said, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change the world.
A very good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of the School of Human Resource Management and ZIMAR, the HR Association of XIM University, I, Vrinda Kataria,
And I, Ayush Chakraborty,
extend a very warm welcome to all of you for HR Symposium 2024. We are graced by the presence of our eminent guests today. We have with us our esteemed administrator of XIM University, Father George Fernandez, SJ, respected Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Andrew Datta, esteemed industry dignitaries, faculty members, members of the media and press, and our dear students. I take the privilege to welcome you all to this grand event. I now take this opportunity to invite our esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Rajorshi Ganguly, Father George Fernandez, SJ, and Dr. Andrew Datta to kindly join us on the dais. I request Dr. Maushami Padi, Associate Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, to welcome the dignitaries with a bouquet of flowers.
Thank you, ma'am. The HR Symposium is the annual event of ZIMAR, which brings together illustrious leaders from the field of HR and IR under one roof to discuss the current trends in HR, generating engaging and unique insights for the young minds. Over the years, we've had the privilege to interact with the best in the business and gain a lot from the plethora of knowledge and experience that they bring with them. In today's rapidly evolving workplace, one of the most pressing challenges organizations face is bridging the generational divide.
As different generations with unique values, perspectives, and work styles converge, it's imperative for HR professionals to foster a harmonious and inclusive environment. This year's symposium theme, Bridging Generational Gaps, Harmonizing a Diverse Workforce, aims to explore strategies and best practices that can help organizations navigate this complex landscape. To understand the underlying dynamics of the diverse workforce better, we have eminent speakers divided into two panels. The first panel discussion will revolve around the topic balancing flexibility and productivity across age groups, and the second panel, which will be in the post-lunch session, will talk about synergizing culture and communication in a multi-generational workforce. We will learn more about our speakers as we proceed towards the panel discussions.
May I now request the dignitaries on the dais to mark the beginning of this year's symposium by lighting the auspicious lamp of knowledge and wisdom. I would also like to invite Dr. Shubhra Patnaik, faculty member, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, and Vrinda Kataria, the coordinator of ZIMAR, to join the dignitaries in lighting the lamp.
शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योति परब्रह्म दीपज्योति जनार्दनः दीपो मे हरतु पापं दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते।
Thank you all. Special thanks to Ananya Swami for the shloka chanting. I would now like to invite our respected Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Andrew Datta, to deliver the welcome address.
Respected Administrator, XIM University, Father George Fernandez, SJ, distinguished keynote speaker for this symposium, Dr. Rajarshi Ganguly, President, Global HR Head, Alchem Laboratories Limited, our esteemed panelist, Mr. Aditya Mishra, Managing Director and CEO, CIEL HR Limited, Ms. Tanuja Mishra, Principal of Organization Development, Infosys Limited, Mr. Surya Siddhartha Das, SBU HR Head, Havels India Limited, Mr. Prakash Panda, President and Group CHRO, India Power Corporation Limited, Ms. Sarah Isabel Kelman, Director HR L&D, Manipal Health Enterprises Private Limited, Mr. Shyam Chaudhary, Chief of BHR, Tata Power Orissa Discoms Limited. Our moderators for the day, Professor Arup Roy Chaudhary and Professor Shubhra Patanaik, respected faculty colleagues, members of the media, Team Zimar, and dear students. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the Xavier School of Human Resource Management's annual HR Symposium, organized in partnership with Zimar, the HR Association of XIM University. Today, we gather to engage in a dialogue on a theme that is not only pertinent, but is also important for the modern workforce, bridging generational gaps, harmonizing a diverse workforce. Last couple of years, we have been advocating diversity and inclusion. We have achieved a lot in that, and yet more is to be done. But with that inclusion and diversity that we have done, today we are facing a new challenge of how to harmonize that diversity, which brings generational gap in its wake. As HR professionals, educators, and industry practitioners, we find ourselves at a very important moment in history. Our workplaces are now more generationally diverse than ever before, with multiple generations from baby boomers to Gen Z, working side by side. Each of these generations bring with them distinct values, expectations, and work styles, shaping the dynamics of our organizations in profound ways. This diversity is a double-edged sword, and it does not have a handle. On one hand, it offers a rich tapestry of perspectives that can fuel innovation, drive growth, and enhance organizational resilience. But on the other hand, it poses significant challenges in terms of communication, collaboration, and alignment of personal values. The generational divide, if not managed thoughtfully, can lead to and is leading to many misunderstandings, decreased productivity, and fragmented organizational culture. Many years ago, way back in 1983, when Jeet Hofstede did his framework across all the subsidiaries of IBM across various countries, it was found that at the core of human behavior, at the core of human action, lies the set of value system that they have. The focus of today's symposium is not merely to discuss these challenges, but to explore practical, actionable strategies that can help us turn this diversity into a strategic advantage. We are here to examine how we can bridge these generational gaps and create a cohesive workforce that thrives on differences rather than being divided by them. From a scholarly perspective, it is essential to understand the underlying factors that contribute to generational tensions in the workplace. Research shows that these tensions often stem from differences in communication styles, attitudes towards technology, work-life balance, perceptions of authority and leadership. However, these differences are not insurmountable. In my view, the real nature of generational gap emerges from the differences in the value system held by our workforce. The evolution of work values over decades has significantly contributed to the generational gaps that we observe in today's workforce. Older generations often prioritize job security, loyalty to an employer, and a strong work ethic, with a focus on long term career stability. In contrast, younger generations, particularly the millennials and the Gen Z, tend to value work life balance, purpose driven work, and opportunities for personal growth and innovation. They are more inclined to seek roles that align with their values, offer flexibility, and provide a clear path for advancement, even if it means switching jobs frequently. In my observations of the shift in work values over the last 23 years of my industry academia interface, the following seem to have deep ramifications, which I have jotted down uh, in a more casual way over the last couple of days of thinking as to what is really plaguing the generational gaps. What I found was that shift from loyalty to a single employer to a focus on career agility and mobility. It is not the employer who is important anymore, but what meaning one finds in the job role for oneself that has become important. Transition from valuing long hours of work to prioritizing efficiency and results. Answer to how one is adding value to oneself is more critically important now than merely looking at how one is adding value to the organization. Change from thoughtful performance evaluations to non-stop micromanagement disguised as feedback is what sometimes considered as normal expectations, and you don't do it for them, they don't like your company. There has been a shift in personal values also, which I tend to see it as a radical change that has happened. Shift from the pride of ownership to never committing anything beyond a monthly subscription. Change in valuing social status to prioritizing personal happiness and mental health. Transition from long term planning to embracing spontaneity and short term goals. Is our organizations geared up for handling these? There have been some societal changes that have come down, have seeped down to the level of how people are valuing. Shift from valuing traditional education to prioritizing skill development and lifelong learning. Transition from communal responsibility to individual rights and freedoms. Transition from trusting vetted journalism to following whatever viral tweet grabs attention. Shift from cultural pride to blending into homogeneous global mashup where nothing stands out. These differing priorities can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts in the workplace, as each generation may view their values and work styles as incompatible or less valid. This divergence in work has thus become a central challenge in managing a multi generational workforce, necessitating new approaches in leadership, communication, and organizational culture to bridge these gaps effectively. It is vital for HR professionals to take the lead in creating an organizational culture that not only accepts but celebrates diversity. Today's panel discussions will delve into these topics, offering insights and strategies that you can take back to your organizations. We are privileged to have with us some of the most respected voices in the industry who will share their experiences and expertise on how to navigate the complexities of a multi generational workforce. As we embark on this day of learning and collaboration, I encourage each of you to think critically and creatively about how we can bridge these generational gaps. Let us consider how we can leverage our collective strengths to create workplaces that are not only diverse but also cohesive, innovative, and resilient. In closing, I would like to express my gratitude to the distinguished guests. Your contributions are invaluable in shaping the future of HR. To our students, I urge you to listen intently, engage actively, and take this learning forward into your careers. And to my colleagues, thank you for your unwavering commitment to advancing the field of human resource management. Let us work together to harmonize our diverse workforce and pave the way for a more inclusive, dynamic, and successful future. Thank you. And I welcome you all a very productive and enlightening symposium today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such a warm welcome to the HR Symposium 2024.
Now, I welcome and invite our esteemed administrator of XIM University, Father George Fernandez SJ, to please deliver the inaugural address.
Dr. Rajarshi Ganguly, today's keynote speaker, Dr. Andrew Datta, Dean, School of HRM, our esteemed and learned panelists, Dr. Shubhra and her organizing team, the faculty of HRM, and my dear students. Today, in a fast-changing world, there's a lot of revolution that is going on, both between the senior and the juniors. It is, for many of us, especially the seniors, it's very difficult to cope up with the changes that are taking so fast. And it's also times when we fail to understand the youngsters and their ways of being and living. And in this context, I find that this topic is very, very relevant. Today, I want to talk about a topic that is becoming increasingly important and relevant in our modern workplaces: bridging generational gaps, harmonizing a diverse workforce. As future HR leaders, it is crucial for us to understand the different generations we will encounter in our careers: baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. Each generation brings unique perspectives, skills, and experiences to the table. These diversities touch many aspects of life. While the diversities at times might give an impression of being a threat and challenging, it is good to recognize great creative opportunities within diversities. So why does generational diversity matter? Or if I may ask, why is it necessary to a great extent? It is simple. A workforce is a mix of generations, is richer in perspectives and innovation. Different age groups contribute a variety of experiences, knowledge, and problem-solving approaches that can drive creativity and business growth. This diversity also helps companies to be more adaptable and resilient in the face of change. Current HR trends emphasize diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and gender diversity is a critical part of this conversation. Organizations are increasingly aware of the need to accommodate different generational needs to foster a more inclusive workplace. One of the biggest challenges is balancing flexibility and productivity. Different generations have different preferences for how they work. For instance, millennials and Generation Z often value flexible working arrangements such as remote work or a flexible hours. In contrast, baby boomers might prefer more structural environments. To manage this, the companies like Google have adopted flexible work policies that allow employees to choose the work environment that best suits them. However, it is also vital to maintain productivity is better setting clear goals and using technology to support various working styles. Communication styles also vary across generations. While baby boomers may prefer face-to-face interaction or emails, Generation Z favors instant messaging or video calls. This difference can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. It is important for us as HR professionals to foster an environment where all communication styles are respected and used effectively. For example, tools like Slack or Microsoft Teams can help bridge these communication gaps by offering multiple ways to communicate. Building a collaborative culture is another essential element. Encouraging open communication, mutual respect, and cross-generational mentoring can lead to a more inclusive workplace. Companies like IBM have successfully implemented mentorship programs where knowledge flows both ways. Older employees share their experience, while younger employees offer fresh perspectives and tech savviness. Leadership plays a vital role in bridging generational gaps. Inclusive leaders are those who actively address biases, encourage diverse voices, and promote a culture of collaboration. As future leaders, you should focus on training programs that prepare you to manage a multi-generational workforce, ensuring everyone feels valued and included. Finally, fostering a unified vision and purpose is key. When employees of all ages feel aligned with the company's goals and values, they are more likely to feel engaged and committed. This alignment can be achieved through transparent communication, involving employees in decision-making and recognizing the unique contributions of each group. In conclusion, generational diversity is not just a challenge to be managed, but an opportunity to be leveraged. By understanding and appreciating the different needs, preferences, and strengths of each generation, we can create more innovative, inclusive, and dynamic workplaces. As you embark on your careers in HR, I encourage you to think about how you can contribute to harmonizing a diverse workplace and truly bridging generational gaps. God bless you.
Thank you, Father, for enlightening us with such inspiring words.
I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our respected keynote speaker, Dr. Rajarshi Ganguly, President and Global HR of XIM Laboratories Limited. Dr. Ganguly has over 30 years of experience managing HR in sales and marketing, manufacturing, and R&D environments across various organizations. He has a diverse industry experience in strategic HR, change management, talent management, competency modeling, leadership development, and several others across India and geographies like USA, UK, Russia, Mexico, Latin America, and South Africa. Dr. Ganguly has also featured in 50 HR Leaders 2021 by the White Page International, India's Most Agile 20 HR Leaders 2021 by Sapphire Connect, and the FA Influencer Power List in 2023. I would like to invite Dr. Rajoshi Ganguly to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, respected Father and Dr. Andrew. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. In fact, probably I'm coming to XIM Bhubaneswar after almost 10 years. So my last visit and my frequent visit used to happen in your old campus in the city when I used to come for recruitment. So this is the first time I'm coming here to this new campus, and it's a lovely campus. It's a very different part of the city I was unfamiliar with. So thank you so much for inviting, and this topic which has been set as today's, for the HR Symposium, Bridging Generational Gaps, Harmonizing a Diverse Workforce. Of course, you heard in the welcome address and inaugural address, and pretty much they covered the importance of this topic and why, therefore, this is debated. So, before I just put my thoughts, and I'm sure there will be a very engaging panel discussion today, and the panelists are already here. This generational gap, which is, today discussed a lot in the corporate sector, it's a topic of discussion. Actually, to me, I always feel a corporate world is an extension of our family and family system. Most of the students who are present here, and I would assume 100% of them, all of you are from Gen Z, right? Typically, Gen Z is assumed to be someone born after 95 to 2010. I don't think any Gen Alpha is sitting here, which is the cohort at 2010 onwards, and they will soon enter the workforce. And I'm sure there could be some millennials also. I'm from the Gen X. My fathers and all, they were baby boomers, and there's a generation even before that called the silent generation. So if you look at, let's say, take the organization where I come from, it's a 50-year-old organization. It's the 5th largest pharma company in the country. As the CHRO, I have to manage 5 generations because even our founder is here. So to somebody who we recruit just as of yesterday, so the spectrum of age, from the 80s to the 20s, we have to manage. And that creates the complexity. And, when you hear this bridging, these generational gaps, you must be hearing all this very often in the family also. I'm sure many of you have your grandfather. I've lost my father, I've lost my mother, I've lost my grandfather. So, but, when they were there, we used to hear similar tones. You all don't know, you didn't value this, you didn't value that. This is the way we used to do. Isn't this a very familiar discussion in a family, even today? Your parents must be also telling you, we are parents to 3 kids, and all our 3 kids, the twins and an elder daughter, they are also Gen Z. So it's a continuous fight I see between my wife and especially my daughters. And I enjoy from the sideline. Many people are smiling here, probably they're able to relate with their family. So it's not very unusual. And, this kind of generational gap will continue. However, what has happened over the last 2 decades or so is this: the difference has been very stark. And I always say the generational gap or something like that is always talked when a certain generation behaves in a certain way. And that behavior happens due to the socio-cultural context in which one grows. If you look at how the world has moved in the last 30 years, I mean, professionally I have completed 30 years, and if you read my blog in LinkedIn, how the HR function has evolved in last 30 years. I mean, what I used to do maybe the first 5 years and what I am doing last 5 years in HR, probably 15-20% is common, but rests are very uncommon. So it is also to do with the changes happening around you. All of you have, especially the Gen Z who have joined the workforce and they are still joining, they are raised in an era where the world has dramatically changed. I call it our generation, and I'm sure some of you would agree. I came from a small town, with a lot of power cuts, etc. So we studied in lanterns. Many of you have not seen what's a lantern. So we are a generation who have seen from lanterns to LCDs, LEDs, or whatever. But probably some generations have not seen that. So it's how you have got exposed over a period of time. I think that creates certain way all of us behave, expect, and bring those expectations to work. And that's where, as an organization, we have to be very mindful of how do we, accept some of these realities and move ahead and create space for everyone in the organization. So when you have a workforce of 4 to 5 generation, and which is typically, I would assume, is the case with most organizations, what do you do? Because classically, the most management of every organization, and it's not just the corporate organization, it could happen in any industry, it could happen even in an educational institute, we tend to see things from the way we have experienced life. And that's where, a lot of harmonization is required when you want to get the full effectiveness of the workforce. For example, what's a generational divide? I mean, generational divide is nothing but, how do your work styles, what do you expect, how you communicate, what do you expect from a reward, recognition, or, how you want to, how would like to see work. So it's basically when there is a gap in my thinking and your thinking, that kind of divide happens. And that divide, as you heard them saying, it can happen in a communication style. It can happen in, the way I see work versus the way you see work to be done. For example, the classical view of work was you have to be present to get the work done, right? Even today, I'm sure there are many industries where you have to be present to get the work done because a machine cannot be operated from home. But there are certain work, it can be done irrespective of where you are. For example, when I reach office at 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m., my official clock starts from 10. But probably I have been already working for another 2 hours before, which is not visible, which is accepted because people look at outcome today rather than, being present there. So presentism is not always equivalent to, being effective. So that's where, the organization culture and flexibility probably needs to evolve over a period of time. And this has to be done in all dimensions. For example, the way, in our time, let's say even 2 decades back, I'm talking about 1990s, early 2000, recruitment was not such a big challenge. Today it's a big challenge because you're constantly flooded with social media, the claims of who is a better employer brand than others. So how do you stand out in these kind of environment and create really a space for your organization in the mind of a prospective talent? Now, a classical way would be, okay, I have just advertised a job. So what's wrong in it? But if you have to really engage with people from different generations, and more so the people who have, or the millennials and Gen Z who are more coming to the workforce, you just can't create a job and say, I need a person. You need to articulate and engage with a prospective talent to make that person really excited to come forward. How many of you agree with this? How many of you would just like to work in an organization which has no purpose versus an organization or a job where you see the organization is purpose driven? An organization which cares, an organization which promotes diversity. So the way, let's say even the recruitment function has evolved in the last 10, 15 years is dramatically changing. And this is where if as HR heads or, as a member of HR team soon, many of you will join, you have to constantly see from the shoes of the customer and stakeholder. Like here, the customer and stakeholders are a prospective talent. How do I bring changes in my recruitment systems and processes? Have I articulated the job in a way where the person really feels there's a career? Or I have just, published a routine, drab job description? It doesn't work anymore. As an organization, how do I engage with different generations? Still, there would be somebody you may be hiring as a president of an organization. He or she may not like to be engaged the same way as a Gen Z. So how do you bring that flexibility in an organization? That would be needed from the professionals of tomorrow, and that's where actually we are grappling. Let's now take the onboarding practice. Good old days, the appointments, I still remember my first appointment letter, and I don't know, many of you may not have seen, came through a postcard. How many of you have seen a postcard? You have seen a postcard? I don't know whether it's still valid. My first appointment letter, the HR manager of that factory wrote by hand saying you are appointed. I received that postcard in the year 1994 and I joined that company. Now imagine now what we have to do to engage with the talent. So the mechanics are changing. I may be still okay by receiving a hard copy of an appointment letter, and so be it, but there are future generations who would not be satisfied with that. So how do you continuously even engage with them from the time you have released an offer to the time you come on board? So these are the expectation gap. Maybe if you have a very classical organization or a classical culture, they would be reluctant to bring these changes in your HR systems. But that's where the challenge is, how you push for these changes to really create an organization for tomorrow. Let's take communication style. How do you communicate in an organization? No organization today communicates on paper anymore. Have you brought those changes? It's not just email. You heard, them saying, have you introduced collaboration tools, Slack? But those kind of things may be very good for generations like you. But at the same time, I have a labor force who may not like to communicate by Slack. So how do you bridge the gap and yet ensure that the communication is reaching to them? So you should have a mix of in-person, use of technology. And not just that, when you come to the subject of communication, how you see each other from their perspective. The more we are able to appreciate and see each other from others' perspective, you'll find that these gaps are reducing. I always say that no one is wrong. You have to just step into their shoes to understand what the person is saying, to appreciate it better. Because very often we receive a communication by switching off our receptor cells because we are more busy in thinking from our point of view. And that's where the conflict starts, and we say, look, our generation did this, you all don't know, and all those conversations starts. Let's take another example of a classical management style. And this I often get as complaint as the HR head of the organization, and most of my exit interviews point to an issue with the supervisor. Now, interestingly, most of the current generation who are leaving, by design, they are supervised people from Gen X or even earlier. That's how it is, because they have gone to a level of seniority, and so therefore they are in positions of department head, functional head, and they are managing a young workforce. Very often, a complaint I get arising out of exit interviews is micromanagement. I see when I tell my son or daughter too many instructions, they get little irritated. Do you agree with it? This is a DIY generation. Agreed? So, if I have given you a task to do, research says leave it to them, they will do it. They will figure out. If you are a manager, behave more like a colleague, don't behave more like a boss. But the mistake one can do is start behaving as a boss, because that person would relate his days when he was a trainee and how his boss behaved. So he will sit over, give me a report. Every half an hour he would expect an update. Why haven't you sent me the report? And these I'm telling you basis verbatim complaints that we get. Because this manager is appreciating the work style from how that person has experienced life. Versus this generation may not like that, because they are more they are independent, and they know how to get the work done. But yes, they will reach out to you as managers when they need your guidance. So how do you really change that relationship from a boss subordinate to a colleague and a mentor? The moment you are able to bring this shift, you will find that there is a bit of harmony. Let's take reward and recognition. Or before that, let me get into performance management, which is a subject we often deal, you must have read. A classical performance management must be a very documentation type. But people, while I see my earlier workforce, they are okay with such kind of things. The newer workforce are not so much with that kind of documentation. And I have to create that flexibility in my system. Because the way, the era of instant feedback, periodic check-in where I have done something, I really need an input from my peers, my manager, how I have done. They would look for some instant feedback to energize themselves. While we also get it, but we are more comfortable even if our manager do not give a feedback or gives a feedback, what we call it in the performance management system as a 6-monthly feedback or a yearly feedback. So how do I have a system which balances both? For example, in our own system, we have brought these changes from our earlier very classical system. We have now enabled where people can give feedback very often. So if you don't want to give, you still have the classical system. So we appreciate all the generation. Whereas even for the workmen, who are from a little older generation, late 50s, technologically they are not savvy, we still have the paper-based system. So the point I'm trying to make is in an organization, how you create space for everyone so that, you are able to kind of take everyone. And probably I'll take one more example of reward and recognition. Like today, 20 years back, we never thought this, or 15 years back, we never thought this. But today, organizations, even like ours, very classical organization, we are not a new age startup. We have brought reward and recognition which caters to all generations. You have those very brick and mortar type reward and recognition where you even send a thank you card, you give somebody a trophy, you appreciate them. We have even online rewards and recognition where we have left the choices to the employees. You get a points. Once you get the point, you encash it the way you want. Because we found that, yesteryear somebody would say, no, present them a book. Present them a pressure cooker. They don't bother a pressure cooker now. Maybe, certain part of my factory, they still value a pressure cooker and fan. But you don't do that because you say, okay, give me the points, I will encash it in a Zomato, Swiggy or a Myntra and buy whatever I want to have. So how do you create, the biggest, the resistance to this change I have always seen is the HR function. Because we tend to implement things keeping a, certain way we have grown, we have experienced, versus how do you create really an ecosystem where, and especially, I continuously have this dialogue with my compensation and benefits head that, gone are the days of one size fits all policies. Sometimes I see my compensation head because he's from a little older generation. He's very excited about NPS, pension scheme. I said, they are not bothered about NPS pension scheme. Of course, you keep that for certain section, but you also see how certain section gets an instant reward or instant way of, getting fast bucks. So one hand, even we have a Pluxee card. To one hand, we have a NPS also. So how do you create this kind of framework to carry a multi-generation? I think that's becoming today a real challenge for the organization, be it hiring, onboarding, induction, day-to-day managing people. Let's take me, maybe I missed another important, the learning and development, which is such a vital process for any human resource function. A classical learning and development style, you get people to a room, put them for 3 to 4 days, carry out few modules. That's still valid for certain sections, and we do that. But that doesn't work anymore. I mean, we have started discarding this 4-5 years back, and while we have retained for certain, we have continuously seen how do we bring online courses, micro-module courses which are of 3 minutes duration, 4 minutes duration. So while we have courses of 10 to 12 days which are taught in a classroom because certain things are unavoidable, how also you have courses which can be covered in 3 to 4 minutes. Because if a classical trainer is still under the impression that I am imparting knowledge, that was true in the 90s, early 2000 or even late 2000, but now the access to knowledge everyone has, which is sometimes dangerous because how you interpret that knowledge can be dangerous. Like we are in a pharma company. Many times, the patient before even going into the doctor's cabin, the doctor says they have done so much of Google about the disease that they know the answer. So knowledge is there, but how do you really use it? So you have to provide such kind of platforms to create excitements, mobile-based learning device, use of technology, give them access to online courses. At the same time, there are courses which are still taught even today on the shop floor. And that's really a challenge for a classical organization like us, where we have people of 5 generations. I can't say, no, I'll discard everything and I'll bring technology. I can do that, but then if I bring that, there will be a lot of people who will be afraid of doing that because they are not used to technology like some of you sitting here are. So that's, how you create a system where you start bridging this gap by accepting viewpoints, understanding each other's upbringing. Like when I joined this organization, and I keep saying this, 7 years back, the first day being the head of HR, I spent 3/4 of my day doing paperwork for the joining process. I was okay, but I decided that day, look, this is not going to work. Because that's a very classical way, and I am still okay because I have seen all this. So today it's a paperless, the whole thing which I did for 3/4 of a day, signing, I still remember 55 forms. It is done in less than 5 to 6 minutes today, and the entire thing is paperless. So people don't feel the burden of doing that. However, having said so, there are still some people, of course, the new recruits are not like that anymore, but those 55 papers were okay maybe 20 years back. So as an organization, if we are not able to bring these shifts and changes quickly, because this, especially the newer generations who are more technologically savvy, they have a different preference of work styles, office ambience, tools made to them. So you have to also keep bringing these changes in the organization at a rapid pace, yet not forgetting the other generations who are there, because they bring that wisdom, the experience. And especially when you all go to the workforce, you have to also start respecting their viewpoints. Not all that they say is wrong. Because with their efforts, the organization has come this far. So how do I take the best of them and use our better skills in certain areas to even reverse mentor? Like I have no qualms in, getting trained in certain areas of technology, even from our trainees. Because I love technology, so I'm not so abreast at times. So I ask my trainee, teach me this. The other day I was having something I wanted to find out how you use GenAI in this kind of area, and I learned last week. So you, as a senior person in the organization, how you also take help of the reverse mentoring in certain areas. The more you are able to put all this together, you'll find that each one is, appreciating each other point. Maybe I'll give you a last practical thing that I have been trying. Currently, we are in the process of rolling out enterprise-wide information system in HR. So I said the implementation team will have people from all generations, and by design we have put that. Because when the first team came, I saw that none of the young people are in the team. But I said we are creating software for next 10 years. So we should not design something which will not be exciting for my future employees. So we have quickly made that change, and we have involved people so that they also evaluate these things from whether really it makes sense for us. So let me summarize and conclude. This generational gap is not something which is more like a talking point or more like something, but it's really we are facing in the organization. And wherever organizations are not able to realize this, making changes in the policies, or they are creating a system where these are accepted, appreciated, each of their views are respected, there will be a issue always. And as human resource function, because I guess 100% sitting here from human resource function, it's our job, because we have a 360-degree view of any organization, to quickly understand in all these elements. Because there are always clashes between the working style. And if these clashes are proactively managed, you'll find that your business, your whatever, whichever industry you are, you'll find that the productivity really goes up. So how do you encourage communication? How do you bring different point of views? We talk today of diversity, equity, inclusion, and very often, I feel sad that, the word diversity is only, gets focused to gender diversity. It's not. Gender diversity is one part of diversity. Diversity would be of age, of generations, of culture, of values, of different mindset, different background, different education background. That's where, real diversity and inclusion, if you're able to create an inclusive workplace, you will really find that, the challenges won't vanish. It would at least start diminishing. And our job as HR fraternity will be also to work on the minds of senior management, managers, and equally even the new entrant, to how do they respect each other. So that's all from my side, and wish you a very engaging day ahead. I'm sure you have great 2 panel sessions ahead. I can see that, and all the panelists are there. I'm sure they will give their own views. Wish you all the best. And just as you get into the workforce a year from now or 2 years from now, you'll find that this will be more pronounced. And how effectively you advise your CHRO or your managers as a HR business partner or as a COE specialist, that would determine the success of real good HR team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your valuable words, sir. I now request our esteemed administrator of XIM University, Father George Fernandez, SJ, to kindly felicitate our keynote speaker, Dr. Rajoshi Ganguly, by presenting him a memento as a token of our appreciation and gratitude. We request our respected Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Andrew Datta, to felicitate Father George Fernandez, SJ, with a memento to express our gratitude for his presence today.
Now start with the first panel discussion for the day. The theme for this panel is balancing flexibility and productivity across age groups.
As rightly mentioned by our keynote speaker, the workplaces of today are more dynamic than ever. Companies are employing people from up to 4 different generations, and it's no surprise that each generation has their own unique styles, needs, goals, and traits for employers to consider. While generational diversity opens up multiple avenues for novelty and innovation, balancing the needs of the people across age groups is one of the greatest challenges faced by companies.
To throw some light on this topic, we have with us our esteemed panel members, Mr. Aditya Mishra, Ms. Tanuja Mishra, and Mr. Saurya Siddharth Das. The session will be moderated by our esteemed faculty, Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary. I request you all to kindly join us on the dais.
I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our respected panel members and our esteemed moderator. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Aditya Mishra, Managing Director and CEO of CIEL HR. With over 24 years of HR experience, Mr. Mishra has led CIEL HR to become a top talent solutions provider with 92 offices across 43 locations in India. He has managed large-scale recruitment projects in sectors such as engineering, consumer products, financial services, IT, manufacturing, and pharmaceuticals. Mr. Mishra's expertise is well recognized, and he actively contributes to the CII HR Forum and the Indian Staffing Federation.
We welcome Ms. Tanuja Mishra, Principal of Organizational Development at Infosys Limited. Ms. Mishra has over 20 years of experience in the IT sector and has excelled in various roles including HR business partnering and organizational development. She has a comprehensive background in people analytics, leadership and career development, and DEI. Ms. Mishra is also a proud recipient of several awards at Infosys and is certified in HR leadership from Wharton Online and Stanford University, as well as in generative AI from Infosys.
We would also like to invite Mr. Saurya Siddharth Dash, SBU HR Head, Havels India Limited. Mr. Dash began his career as a gentleman cadet in the Indian Army before transitioning to corporate HR roles in retail, automotive, healthcare, and manufacturing industries in Mahindra, GE, and Philips. Over the last 16 years, he has gained expertise in talent acquisition, performance development, change management, and HR and culture across multiple geographies, including Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Mr. Dash has been instrumental in shaping organizational culture, fostering innovations in the organizations he has been a part of through effective HR strategies and practices.
This panel discussion will be moderated by our esteemed faculty, Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary. Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary, faculty member, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, is an experienced talent management specialist and an academician with a PhD in Human Resource Management from XLRI Jamshedpur. He has a demonstrated history of 2 decades of enriched work experience in different fields of strategic HRM, industrial relations, and academics. Dr. Roy Chaudhary has done extensive research in the areas of management styles, performance management, competency mapping, HR audit, and HR accounting. Dr. Roy Chaudhary has also demonstrated proven experience in developing and implementing strategic and progressive HR policies at Tata Steel. We welcome you all. I request Dr. Suchitra Pal, faculty member, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, to welcome our esteemed panelists and our moderator with a floral bouquet. Thank you, ma'am. I now hand over the session to you, sir.
So good morning all. And once again, warm welcome to our esteemed panelists. So I would not like to stand much between you and the views of panelists, but we have outlined the discussion like the context will be set by moderator. I think they are the best to set the context, but still I have scribbled some lines, so I will take you through it. And then it will be followed by their views. And then I will pose some questions to them. They will deliberate. So there will be some specific question to each panelist, and there will be some open questions. It will be followed by your question and answers with the students. And finally, I will request each panelist to give one success mantra for the students. And then I will sum it up. So I will set the context like, see, flexibility is often used very loosely to mean not working in the office. We are all still having those, like how many days you are actually in conversations as hybrid working conditions has started working to evolve. Now post your pandemic, however, expectations of flexible working are much broader than before. Providing flexibility is also a key component of the World Economic Forum, whose holistic ambition is for a new future of work for all. Now, there are studies also which suggest that most people look for what we call everyday flexibility. That is the ability to manage and adjust start and finish time, the freedom to manage work commitments in and around your life commitments and for work to be measured in outputs delivered rather than hours worked. So the question is that whether creating flexibility is all about creating policies and rules, or it is all about developing and sharing a vision of what working with flexibility looks like. For instance, trusting employees to act responsibly and empowering them to take the flexibility that they need while maintaining continued focus on output, delivery, product, and business growth. So new employment models are actually emerging, and one of the example I will quote here. Last week I have a discussion with one of my colleague in Unilever. So they have started U work. It's the alphabet U. So it's an employment model that pays employees a retainer, and in return, the U worker commits to working a minimum amount of time each year for which they are being paid based on the completion of the assigned job along with the flexible benefits. So this also takes me to down the memory lane when as your vertical head of talent management at Tata Steel, we initiated this retainership policy. Now with the increased desire for flexibility, having a culture, we need to have a culture that truly caters to this need is essential for securing and retaining access to the best talent and to have an engaged workforce. So, but more than this, having the ability to resource flexibly, that is having access to known talent and skills that can actually be flexed up and down and deployed to priority work as required. That could facilitate managers in the corporate world to be simpler, faster, and more agile. So with this, we'll start the discussion. So I will request our first panelist, Mr. Aditya Mishra, to express his views on the topic.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all of you. I know this day is going to be long, and many people like us will come and sit here on the podium because we have the mic at our hands. We will all act as if we are experts, and we will do some preaching. And you guys need to really sort of think in your mind that whether this person is making sense or not. I am acutely aware of being judged, but with Dr. Rajarshi Ganguly talked to all of us about this multi-generational workforce. Be a little sympathetic and kind towards people like us who have more experience than you all. So sometimes we might sound a little preachy, but the idea is to, of course, it feels good to hold the mic in the hand and share experiences and act like professors. Some of us could not become professors, so so we are here. We are as part-time trying to show off whatever we know. But jokes apart, I think this topic is extremely interesting and very relevant. Any organization that we all work for, whether it's the family where we live and we thrive, everywhere productivity is very important. Even in a family context, if one is not productive, then there are questions that we raise on ourselves, as well as the people within the family, they raise questions that, what are you doing? What's happening to you? And so on and so forth, isn't it? So productivity is very important, but the way this topic is designed, it says productivity and flexibility. So I was just thinking, are we saying that if I am flexible, productivity gets compromised? Is there a hidden message there? I just want to address this particular point. In my mind, productivity and flexibility are not really the two sides of the coin. I think to become productive, HR needs to do what it needs to do. It needs to do various things to help the organization to create an environment where people who are coming there are productive. So what kind of employee benefits have to be there? What kind of policies are there?
In the previous session, I think extensive discussions have happened, how to handle recruitment, how to do onboarding, how to do rewards, recognition, and so on and so forth. So I think that flexibility is something what even our research as CLHR, as a HR solutions company, we keep doing various research from time to time. One of our recent researches shows that employees across generations, it's not only the people who are the Gen Z. Of course, their need for flexibility is more. Their need is 34%, while we did some weighted score and we found that this is 34, while the people who are like the Gen Ys are like 30 and Gen X was little lesser. So the needs for them are different. Having said that, all people, irrespective of age group, we find that everybody looks for flexibility. But what is the importance that we need to assign to flexibility as a concept is undergoing serious kind of changes because of the socio-economic changes that we all are living, because of the socio-economic changes that our times are currently seeing. And the speed at which changes are happening, that's why the preferences are also changing very rapidly. Maybe 30 years ago, the diversity of preferences wasn't as high as it is today. So I think HR, coming back to the point that I started with, that HR needs to create an enabling infrastructure. The way we acquire talent, the way we engage talent, the way we retain talent or develop talent, all of these needs to, all of these are targeted towards development, right? Towards productivity. So we as HR people, and more so as young HR or budding HR practitioners, we need to have this concept in our mind that flexibility is given. It needs to be done. But how we structure flexibility? Flexibility is not about only being present or about the work hours or the workplace. Flexibility is about many things. I think in the previous session, there were examples given as to how flexibility in rewards and recognition need to be managed. How in learning and development, flexibility needs to be incorporated. So we have to think about it. The point that I'm trying to make is productivity and flexibility are not at loggerheads. Flexibility is a new component, probably classic textbooks or the teachings or the lessons and debate dialogues which happened in HR circle 10 years ago wasn't so intense as it is today. So if you have to make a rank order of factors, I think flexibility today has climbed up the order. So we need to pick that up and think, do I have adequate ideas of making my policies flexible? So I think they coexist. We need to think innovatively to make our policies to help organization to stay productive. So that's the opening remark.
Thank you, sir. So now I request Ms. Tanuja Mishra to express her views.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Zimhar, for this opportunity. And it just, before I go on the beaten path, but I would just like to just share my heartfelt gratitude that I am back, on a podium in my alma mater. So that is a, very great thing. And definitely, and that the generational divide is, I've come back here after 20 years. So definitely this is something that I, appreciate about coming back to the campus. The other thing is, before I begin, thanks to Mr. Aditya Mishra, who's given all the disclaimers. So I will skip the disclaimers and the statutory warnings. I will start with saying that, from the diaspora that I represent, and from where I come, and predominantly my experience has been in the IT industry, and IT industry is always at the forefront of any change, any waves, any disruption that we see today globally. And the average age of an IT industry worker is 37 to 39 years. And we have a multi-generational workforce with almost 55% of our workforce is below 30 years, and almost 45 and above are, above 30 years. 45% are above 30 years. And 50 years and above are only 1 to 2%. And that I'm talking about at an industry level as well. So, if you look at it, then the topic of generational shifts, generations impact, all these new age coins that we are hearing, flexibility, productivity. I think we were not talking about it earlier, but we are talking about it now, is mostly because we've seen a workforce as well as a workplace shift. So it's not only about the workforce, but it's also about the kind of workplace we are trying to build today. Both these things are important when we talk about the context of flexibility and productivity. Both these topics also are very close to my heart because I am in a center of excellence role, managing organization development, and we always tend to see, keep our eyes out for any tipping point that we see as a trend for employees, in terms of whether the productivity is lowering, what is the flexibility that we are giving, is it enough, is it more? And like Mr. Aditya Mishra said, they are actually not two sides of the coin, but they're actually the same side. And why so? Even I agree to his point. And why so is because flexibility today is, should not be taken as a point for only flexible work hours. I know Mr. Narayan Murthy made a statement, and that was very viral, of 70 hours. But flexibility should not be taken only in terms of the number of working hours. Flexibility also means that are we giving, on the go learning opportunities. You need not come to a classroom. Can you log in your tab, in your phone, and learn when you're traveling, when you're commuting, and so on. Flexibility also means that our policy is flexible, because for large organizations like us, any change management always is very complex. So flexibility is also an ownership of the organization to bring about a lot of changes, and how swiftly we can get those changes done. So that's also flexibility. Flexibility is also about managing global workforce. So while there, maybe in the 90s, the shift was towards going on site. I remember when I was a business partner HR role and I used to induct employees, a person who's come from an engineering college, first question they will ask is, ma'am, when can you send me to US? Okay, and the person's just come from the college, and those days, believe me or not, we used to actually send people in 2 to 3 years, and that was the norm then. But over a period of time, that has totally changed. Today, it is more, onshoring is happening. Offshoring has seen a drastic shift as well. So the flexibility is also about how we manage our global workforce as a company. And amongst all these jargons of flexibility in different forms that we hear, productivity, are we losing focus on the productivity? My answer is no. And it is, do we trust our employees if we provide them flexibility that they will be productive? I think as an organization, you have to build that trust. Today, the other complexity that has been added to this entire ecosystem is hybrid model. So there are managers today who have been in the company for 15 years, 30, and they come to office. They like coming to office, but they're managing a team who they have never seen. They're all connected virtually. They don't come to office. So how do this complexity also get addressed in this hybrid model is something that we have to also ponder. And you, and many of you, when you join probably corporates, many of you will be in a similar hybrid setup, because that's also becoming, a rule. And I know personally how many mailers we send, how many awards we give. People are reluctant to come back and join. I can say for myself as from the IT industry. So we have to adapt to that kind of a flexibility and ensure that and have trust with the employees that they will be productive as well as. And data also says that the more flexibility you give, your productivity also goes up. So I think data, you take Gallup survey, you take Harvard surveys, you take Gartner surveys, that definitely points to the fact that productivity and flexibility are not inversely proportional to each other. As an organization, we have to trust our employees to be productive in a very, very flexible environment that we are going to, enable them with. So that's my, message in terms of this topic.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I request Mr. Saurya Dash for the opening remarks.
Hi, good morning. I think the topic is very, very interesting because it is bringing about the three dimension. One is multi-general workforce, the second is flexibility, and the third is productivity. And I'm very glad that my co-panelist also started with the fact that this is high time we start debunking the myth that flexibility and productivity are linked. We need to understand, one, every organization doesn't measure flexibility in a uniform manner. There are various different roles and the productivity is measured very, very differently. Flexibility is no way linked with it, and we need to understand that fact. Now, coming to the second part is, I think Dr. Ganguly made a beautiful point that our workplaces today are a reflection of our families. Any workplace is going to be a reflection of the society and family, right? And we need to be prepared for that. While by definition, if you look at it today, there are 3 to 4 generation of workforce which is working today. But if you look at how the shift has come in today, even a 5-6 years gap is a generational change, because the way the society is moving, the way the technology is coming in, the way people are quickly adapting to things. So in reality, probably there is 5 or 6 generation of workforce which is working in your workplace. And it is important from an HR standpoint that how do we ensure that we manage these workforce, we continue to stay productive, and we also provide the amount of flexibility that is required for your organization to be successful. And that is where, and that's why I always keep on talking about that flexibility is not just about policies and processes. Flexibility is a mindset. I think gone are the days when you used to think that if somebody is working from home, if somebody is coming to office at a particular period of time, probably the person is not doing his job. It's not about how many hours you spend in the office sitting in front of the system. It is what is your output. I think one of the good things that has probably happened after the pandemic, the transition has been fast-tracked. Pre-pandemic, if you talk about, there are few organizations, probably IT industry took the lead there, talking about flexibility. But thankfully, post-pandemic, now a lot of organizations are talking about it because one, there is a need for it. Second, the amount of talent that flexibility can bring into your system. Today, you don't have to ask somebody to relocate to a particular town. So you are also being able to tap talent from different parts of the country. That's where I think your productivity is also going up. I can give an example. So, I mean, I've worked with, across my career, I have worked with organizations which have been very, very flexible, and also with organizations with zero flexibility. 2014, I think almost a decade back, when I was working with GE, and flexibility was not the buzzword at that point of time, but an organization were very, very open. One day I texted one of my managers saying, today I really want to work from home, there is some work. The response that I got was, why do you need to inform me? You are a mature individual, you're a professional. I expect you to do your job. Unless you have a physical meeting, you manage it from wherever you want to manage. The other part that we also need to look at when we are talking about flexibility is how we are contributing to the environment and society. I think flexibility also plays a role, especially if you are looking at hybrid working model. It also adds to the environmental fact. Today, if you look at the cities and all, extremely crowded. You are adding to the emission. So, are we? In a way, we are also contributing there. I think that's the reason we need to really delve deep into the topic. We need to ensure that all these factors are being taken care of as an organization, and HR is going to play a huge role because that shift of mindset that is needed, probably HR has to play a part as a coach. It's going to take a little bit of time, I'm sure, but I think that's where our role is.
Sir. So I think very intuitive points came out from this opening remarks. So my first question to Mr. Aditya Mishra is that balancing flexibility and productivity, do you think that does age matter?
Okay. I think this question has an undertone of, we are talking about balancing between flexibility and productivity. Actually, it's there in all our minds. Many of us have certain understanding about the impact of flexibility on productivity. That's the point, right? That's what the discussion is. And Tanuja spoke about how much ever you ask people to come back to work, it doesn't happen normally. Many people have relocated out of their base locations to wherever they are from. They belong to different cities. People have different kind of anchors now. I know of candidates, or professionals, because we are in recruitment, staffing and all of it. We keep meeting a lot of professionals. So somebody has found his hometown to have a football club, and the person is so passionate about playing football, the person doesn't want to come back to Mumbai, wants to be in his small hometown where he is very active with his football club. And they organize matches, they have a good time. So all of this is happening, right? We are talking about balancing here. The company wants him back in Mumbai, but he works in IT industry, and he says that I'm delivering all the output that was required, and hence it's all balanced. Why do you want to put a policy which forces me to come to office? Okay, so the organization has its own views, and the employee has his own views. Then he says that, hey, if you force me, then I am going to look for something else, and I feel confident that I will be able to get a work from home option to be in my hometown. So on this particular point, so this is the story. This is a real story. This is not a kind of just a made up thing to make a point. So if I can just ask a quick question, if you, by a show of hands, how many of you feel that organizations must allow work from home wherever it is possible? Almost all. Okay. So we find, because we are again in the this side of the table where the corporate HRs are there. So on the other side. So I know this is what is the situation. Okay. So I want to make a point here that many of us think that all work that happens is possible to be done remotely. I understand you know that a machine, a bridge cannot be constructed sitting at home. I need to be at the construction site. I think all of us are in agreement here. However, for the services industry, like IT, many of you think that most work can be done remotely. So that is the question that many of us should think about deeply. That's the question of balance which comes here. I just want to illustrate this, because many things that we think can be done remotely are actually not possible to be done remotely. For example, the impact that we are able to create in our minds due to this physical conference, we all are together in one hall. We are able to meet each other. We are able to talk to each other in the sidelines. Isn't it a much more fulfilling experience than holding this 150 of us on a Zoom meeting? It could have been done on a Zoom meeting, right? Zoom or whatever technology. But imagine the amount of fulfillment that you have in your minds, the pleasure, the spirit of living, the spirit of learning, the spirit of, sort of even just creating relationships. I find that many young people are today discounting this. I'm not saying that everything has to be done physically. So that's the point, the nuanced point that I want to bring up. You all are young. I was young at one point of time. I felt that my bosses, whatever they're saying, is all useless. They don't understand. I think I must again pay tributes to Dr. Ganguly, who talked about this. I think it's fact. So please sometimes think that there is probably a point in what the boss is saying. And same time, I also profess, if you see, if you just Google about CLHR or me, you'll find several conversations, several research our organization has done and we have published. You'll see that we as an organization have been professing the point of flexibility because our cities can't simply take the traffic. So he spoke about it. So the point is that a good balance is required. A good hybrid operation is required. So you all as young people need to understand that there are some aspects of human relations. There are jobs related to, there are activities related to human relations which are only done by physical processes. You do a performance appraisal remotely, you do a performance appraisal sitting with your boss where you and your boss are kind of take some time to relax and settle down and talk about it freely. The conversation quality is much better. Open-ended, unstructured conversations happen very well when we are in a physical setting. So appreciate this. Also tell your bosses that many things that we come to office and do can be done remotely. So that's the balance that I am talking about.
So thank you, sir. So ma'am, you touched upon in your opening remarks about the flexible work schedules and also the balance between work and non-work time. So my question to you is like whether flexible work schedules facilitate the balance between work and non-work time, or instead it leads to flexibility paradox, which impact the productivity.
Okay. So to this point, I think the flexibility, we have to look at, now everything has a pro and con. Like the earlier panel suggested, that the nuances has to be also looked at. Now, for example, in some of the roles needs a lot of innovation. Such roles need a lot of collaboration to happen. Now, doing innovation and collaboration in a virtual setup is not proven to be productive. Doing innovation and collaboration in a physical setup is more productive. So the nuances of flexibility have to be taken, and the productivity and its impact have to be taken with these nuances in place. Definitely there are certain advantages to flexibility and its impact on productivity. If I can just summarize that, everything, maybe there are 5 key things, and I call it, in our department we try to say that A, B, C, D, E. So that's what we drive, and A is autonomy. If autonomy for flexibility is not hampering your productivity, then yes, flexibility is good. So you are giving the autonomy to the employee to have flexible work schedules. The employee can come in and go or work out of whichever location. But yes, there are also projects where we have a very sensitive client with great deal of data privacy that is being demanded by the client and mostly in the financial sector. Such clients do not want virtual, logging in for employees, and those is where the flexibility have to be then, downsized, and they have to actually, the employees have to come to the floor and get into the client network and work, because there's a lot of security, data breach, and a lot of these issues, because of which flexibility needs to be taken into consideration. So A is that, the autonomy along with the nonsense. B is the balance, and that's the first question anyways has been answered, the balance in work-life balance. And today with Gen Z and the Gen Z and to some extent the millennials, the work-life balance has become one of a very key thing. I think many, sometime earlier in our exit interviews, the predominant reason for leaving a company has been either compensation or career opportunities. But today we find many people leaving the organization because of work-life balance. They want a football club, they want a tennis club, they want to go even to a golf club, and they want to balance everything together. So work-life balance definitely is coming as a key issue in this generation of people. So the B part is the balance. If employees can bring that balance, then the organization is going to be keen to invest. C is the culture. Now, culture is very, very, very important. As HR professionals, culture is something that, when we say HR professional will always known to be having the human touch. And now with this hybrid model, the human touches has been compromised, right? We no more have that immediate human touch anymore. So the culture has to be felt by the employee in a digital space as well as in the physical space. So how as HR professionals today are we able to inculcate that culture is going to be, if you as HR professionals, you can create that culture where flexibility and productivity can thrive, then yes, flexibility and productivity will be important and the paradox will not happen that he mentioned. D is about, having the digital, because the digital wave, we have to be wary about the various digital waves that are there. So every time, so now we are in the Gen AI and how many of you use ChatGPT here? Right. So, this digital wave is going to tend to take you, away from any physical spaces as well, because learning, many of the things as HR professional that we always inculcate, like learning and development, which is very, very the core of HR, learning and developing our employees, because we are in a knowledge industry, so services industry, any industry, learning and development is at the core. So that definitely is a fine balance that you have to do to avoid the paradox. And finally, coming to E is, the engagement. Now, the enthusiasm, engagement is all about, that we see here in the room, show of hands, asking questions, your physical interaction. So the entire engagement for business partner HR, this is a big question today, actually, that because of the flexibility and the productivity equation that we have to build, the business partner are having to find it very challenging in terms of engaging the employees. So if we can look at A, B, C, D, E and do the right formula to it, every organization can find that formula to A, B, C, D, E, then I'm sure the paradox will not happen. So that was what I would like to say.
So thank you, man. Very intuitive views. So my third question is for Mr. Saurya Dash. So sir, you, in your opening remarks, you touched upon your workplace flexibility across multi-generational workforce and also the flexibility and efficiency for the evolving workforce. So my question to you is that how to ensure and implement workplace flexibility across the lifespan for multi-generational workforce, and second is that how to balance flexibility and efficiency for the evolving workforce.
I think one of the most important aspect of it starts with trust and empowerment. The moment organization starts trusting its employees and employees start trusting their organization, their manager, I think half of the problem is solved. However, world is not an ideal place, and that is where why policies and processes are important, and that is where the role of be it HR, be it business leadership comes in. We are working with multi-generational workforce. Now, how do you ensure that in a flexible environment, you continue to be productive? I think one of the most important aspect of it is communication. When you talk about multi-generational workforce, and I think in the morning we also heard about different expectations, how different generation of workforce come from different socio-economic and cultural background. And that is where the expectations are very, very different. When you work in a multi-generational and flexible workforce, your communication has to be very, very clear, more frequent. Because when you're doing face-to-face communication, right now when you're talking to me, talking to all of us, I think you are also noticing our body language. And that's the reason, it is becoming more effective. When you're working in a hybrid model, lot of time, most of your meetings are happening virtually. Lot of time the cameras are also off. And that's the reason your communication has to be more frequent. You have to modulate your communication, and you will also have to, do more clear communication. That's one part of it. The second part of it is the multi-generational workforce. Irrespective of age, all these people are important, and all of them bring in some dimension to the organization. That's why I think mentoring and reverse mentoring, they are going to play a big role. Through mentoring, probably the younger generation is going to understand more about their previous generation, understand their ways of working, get to share their experiences. And through reverse mentoring, I think the experienced generation is going to learn more from the younger generation, their ways of working, the new things that they are learning. I think that is one important part. The third part is, as an organization, how do you customize your benefits, processes, and everything? There is not going to be one size fits all concept anymore. When I was working with Philips, our benefit was completely flexible. So for an example, a lot of benefits are linked to life stage. When you are 25, you may not think about term insurance as much as somebody at 40 starts thinking about. So do you at 25 want to go, I'm just giving it as an example, 25 want to go for a 3 crore term insurance, or you say that, hey, I'm okay with a 1 crore term insurance, but probably I want more leaves because I want to explore the world, I want to meet my friends or whatever. So if you start providing a bouquet of benefits and probably, kind of make it into points or however you want to execute it, I think different generation workforce will be benefited by that, right? So I think these are the things that are going to help bring in productivity and also to take the multi-generational workforce together.
Thank you, sir. So I will take a cue from what Dr. Ganguly was just touched upon, is the employee value proposition. And what Mr. Aditya Mishra touched upon in his opening remarks is of the multi-generational stereotypes. So as a HR leader, do you think that to improve your employees' value proposition, organization should let go of multi-generational stereotypes? Yes,
All right. I think many of us make a mistake of thinking that if somebody is 50 years old, the person will be, like this. Won't be very smart with technology, would always look for job security, and so on and so forth. So there is a kind of a stereotyping that we do. Which is probably not the right thing to do. Currently, the conversation is about the age group basis, making cohorts based on age groups. But I don't think that age group basis cohorts work always, because the contexts are changing. And I refer to in the morning, I think Dr. Andrew Datta was talking about a global mashup That's also happening simultaneously. So please understand that even in a group of people, employees who are in their 50s, there is so much of diversity in that group. And similarly, in the group of millennials, there is also a lot of diversity which exists. For example, somebody with a just a 1 year experience is so passionate about let's say, after office hours, I need to pursue my hobbies, my passion, while someone else in the same age group is probably thinking of something else, wants to actually spend more and more time on work. There are many young people who actually want to come to office and feel very isolated at office just because they don't have friends, because most of their friends are actually away, they're working from home. But while this person is very seriously looking to work out of the office. There are many people who live in paying guest accommodations and their accommodations are not really good enough for work, or their home in their hometowns is not fully functional or fully equipped to do remote work. So, what happens in an organization? If an organization stereotypes, then it assumes that most of the the people who are in their 20s are going to work from home. They need flexibility. So we need to kind of redefine the concept of flexibility in our minds. Somebody actually in their 20s may be looking for that certificate or the trophy. Sometimes we all think that, okay, this point system works very well. So when we design HRMS for companies, because that's also one of the activities that we do as a company, we actually, when we go to implement an HRMS in organizations, we actually learn about some of these things. And then the systems that we design for our company, we need to keep them super flexible in the system level. I'm not saying only in the work hours and the policies and all of that. Even at a system level, we need to keep them so flexible. It's actually extremely challenging, but extremely exciting also. So that's the point that I would like to make.
Thank you, sir. So, ma'am, you touched upon hybrid model during your opening remarks. So, my question to you is that does hybrid working facilitate better flexibility and improved productivity? And do you think that workplace flexibility supercharge productivity? And if this is a complex model, then what should be the approach in the shop floor? As a HR manager, one need to address this complexity.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. As HR professional, one thing that I have seen happen, because of the hybrid model happening, is HR people have become very, very innovative. So we are right now on an, adrenaline rush to be innovative because we don't have an option. Why I'm saying this is because we are kind of experimenting also with many things. So we thought of doing a alumni network for Infosys X Symposiums, and we called our alumni to office. Now our own employees are also not coming, so we are calling our alumni. The reason was we wanted to bring that connect back and get alumni to the office and have them experience it, because they have been in that generation who appreciated coming to office, and maybe that that would give us something to look at. So we did that, at one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, because when we are launching a new initiative as HR and nobody is willing to come to the classroom, now HR is going to the food court. So now what we are doing is we are setting up kiosk in the food court, putting a LCD screen and running a video on the initiative, asking people, distributing some flyers saying that this is the initiative, when you go back to your desk or when you have time, you go back and look at into this initiative, which will impact your career, your performance management, so on and so forth. So HR in this overall scheme of thing has become very innovative. And as HR professionals of tomorrow, innovation is one thing that is expected from all of you at work. Now coming to the idea about whether there is going to be a compromise. That was the question, right? I mean, whether it compromises productivity, flexibility,
Right. So, or whether it is supercharged, it's supercharged.
or whether it is
productivity.
supercharged.
Yes.
Yes. Now again, one thing was established, flexibility and productivity should go hand in hand. It is up to the organization, what is the ecosystem we are putting forth, what is the culture we are putting forth, what is the kind of expectations managers are putting forth with the teams, and only then we see it happening in the right direction. There are teams where definitely it is supercharged. Flexibility has led to supercharged teams and highly engaged teams, high performing teams. There have been instances where higher degree of flexibility has impacted productivity as well, where the teams have not been able to be on schedule to the work that is getting delivered, or there has been escalation in the team and there has been no one to tackle that escalation at that particular time because everyone were in flexible hours. So it is not there is no right answer for it, if I may say so. It may lead to a supercharged team. It may not lead to the supercharged team, supercharged outcomes. What definitely has to be ensured is, as HR professionals, we enable our leadership, our managerial community to have some basic premises fulfilled, that is of culture, that is of enablement, that is of ensuring that there is enough proof in the pudding that if we are providing you this, it comes with a expectation of this. Only then we can marry the two and say that yes, it has been a fruitful balance between flexibility and experience.
Thank you, ma'am. So, your very intuitive point which came out from the opening remarks of Mr. Sauryadas, it's like debunking age-based myths. So now it's an open question to all of you. Like, as a HR leader, do you think it's the time for debunking age-based myths and its linkage with productivity? And if you can give some examples how you have actually facilitated this in your workplace.
I would like to look at it slightly differently. Why are we linking it with age? Why aren't we linking it with experience? Every organization, and if you look at the job roles, most of the job roles are defined. The job evaluation has happened, and basis that you have arrived that you need certain amount of experience for that particular role. So the problem starts when we start compartmentalizing it into age group. If we start looking from an experience standpoint, because different roles need different kind of experience, and that's why you need different set of people. So my simple answer to this would be, we need to start looking at from an experience standpoint and not so much from an age standpoint.
On this question, yeah, I think that's a good point, because experience is what really is important. Even we have seen that today the experience, we have lesser and lesser number of people who have rung through the ranks in an organization. Most of the people average would be around 3 to 4 years in the organization as an experience, and then they move on to other organizations. So we value the people who are actually who are having experience of more than 10 years, 12 years, 15 years into the organization, because they have seen the organization shift, they have seen the organization culture. They are actually going to be a very good ambassador to drive the new lot which is coming in into the organization. So experience, I agree, is the key here. If we can tap every experienced group and value the experiences they bring on the table, I think we can bridge the gap much better.
Sir, your views.
I have a little different perspective to offer on this. I think that on each dimension, we have to figure out what are the varieties that people are seeking and what works well from productivity perspective for our organization. If I am a BFSI organization, banking financial services company, or a pharma company, or a IT company, there could be certain context which determines what drives productivity, because every organization has its own strategy. So from a strategic, all this flexibility discussion that we are doing, there are endless possibilities. I need to pick those which work for my context. The context is not only industry specific. I think it also has to do with the level of maturity of the organization. Like all of us have got a life cycle. We take birth, we then mature, we grow, and then we grow, mature, and then die. Similarly, an organization also has, like Fortune 500 companies today, the average age is 40 years. There are not many 100+ years organizations in the world. So now the lifespan of an organization, reputed organization, about 40 years. So I need to figure out where I lie in that life journey. So that's the second point that I'm trying to say. The third point is not really based on the age or experience. My personal belief is it's a lot to do with, I offer a bouquet of things. Let that employee pick what they can pick, whether it is to do with wherever I can offer, right? Whether it is about leaves or rewards or performance management, or we spoke about reverse mentoring, right? So Mahindra and Mahindra introduced something very interesting on this reverse mentoring called My Agri Help. So basically, very young people, even outside the organization, in their dealer workforce, had brilliant ideas to actually offer to Mahindra's customers. So this was in a way a reverse mentoring solution that they introduced. I mean, very innovative. The HR people who did this is fantastic, right? So they did not really box people into years of experience or gender or region and things like that. So it could be somebody, a 20-year-old who's coming from Maharashtra. I mean, 20, I'm just saying in the 20s, right? Versus somebody who's coming from Kashmir, could have very different upbringing, different expectations, ambitions in life. So the variation is today quite huge. I would not like to paint the whole canvas with the same stroke of the brush. So there is a huge difference. Hence, it is hard to generalize. So, for example, if I am a large IT services company, then I attract certain quality of candidates, certain education background, certain areas. So there could be some homogeneities. But imagine you are a microfinance company operating in 5 different states of India. You are in Andhra Pradesh, you are in Rajasthan, you are in Chhattisgarh. Microfinance company. I don't know whether you guys are able to really relate with this, but that's the thing is so very different, because our employee force, 36,000, work across the country. They work in 6,600 pin codes of India. The kind of questions that we get from those employees is very different. So I won't really, I mean, we have done this discount coupons, we have done various such employee benefit programs. The way, the same sales executive in central part of India, they expect or they receive a training program is very different from the people who are in Mumbai. Those kind of differences are there. So my view is that we should not, we should look at what's happening in our industry sector and what phase of growth that I am in that industry sector, and hence what bouquet that I will offer. It needs to appeal to all the cohorts that exist in my company. And this cohortization is not uniform. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Thank you. So one last open question, which I have taken a cue from Dr. Ganguly's keynote speech and the opening remarks of all the panelists. So in future, the older generation may become participants in the gig economy, generally who are seen as the preserve of the younger workers. So some retirees may want to continue working, and the gig economy will allow them to do this part-time and on a flexible schedule. So do you think that attracting and retaining older workers is not just a necessity, but a strategic advantage for business leaders?
I think it's already happening in UK. If you look at a lot of older generation wants to come back to work, and I think it's important to provide that flexibility to them because this generation comes with a lot of energy, which is going to help the organization. And why they need flexibility is probably some of them would be not interested in doing a full-time job. There could be health issues, there could be travel issues. But I think this generation is going to provide a lot of insight to business, and that's the reason I think it's important. And that is why I think I continue talking about flexibility is not just about the new generation. I think flexibility, the kind of flexibility might be different, but I think it is for everybody.
Yeah, my view here would be that definitely, I mean, we are seeing various forms of flexibility coming in. One is, people who have also retired are rehired as consultants, and that happens in many banking sectors also and public sectors also. We have many young generation who don't want to be hired, but they want to work as freelancers or gigs in various companies. So that is also happening. Um, Amongst all this, we have to take it also that, where do we draw the line? Because uh, giving opportunities for gig, you are also creating a forum where you can have moonlighting, where which is not something we would want to have. I mean, employees doing dual jobs in two different companies, which compromises the productivity. So having that clear boundary and balance is important in when we allow flexibility for different generations.
Yeah, I think a lot has been spoken about. I would just like to say that systems, processes, and policies, all of it, we need to really think innovatively to make them fit for the purpose. I think that's the challenge.
Okay, so now we'll move to the interaction session, question and answer session with students. So over to Brinda.
Thank you so much, panelists. Can I request the students to raise any questions they had based on the panel discussion? The floor is now open.
Good afternoon, everyone, respected panel members. I am Someshom Naik from MBHRM batch of 24-26. So basically, my question is to Tanuja ma'am. As you mentioned, the ABCDE that you are following, autonomy, balance, culture, digitization, and engagement. So as we are fostering and adapting to a remote work culture and a hybrid work culture, so in that we are allowing the autonomy and we are providing the flexibility. And alongside that, we want to create a strong work culture among the employees. So in a hybrid setting, so I believe the culture is more ingrained in the employees when they come together in a physical setting, the meet and greet and work in a team. So how we can do that and ensure that people working in a hybrid setup are having a strong, company culture in them.
Yeah, that's a constant challenge actually, and I think we are getting there, but we are not yet there. Along with the culture, which was very localized, so a culture is driven very localized. We are also trying to create a digital experience to drive that same culture. So because of that, you will see our surveys have become just a pop-up with immediate mood, measures. Instead of say, giving a one-pager survey, we are just giving one pop-up with mood measures that tell us if our employees are happy, sad, and all that. So that's the digital experience part. We also have not done away with the overall one-pager survey, which comes from time to time to measure. So we are on our path to create a digital experience to drive the culture as well as drive it through the physical local proximity that we are in by having boot camps, by having calling, having organizing sessions like this where we talk about culture and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's happening, but yeah, we are not yet there.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Parsati Swag from the MBA HRM batch of 24-26. Thank you, panelists, for the enriching discussion which you provided to us. My particular question is to Aditya, sir. Sir, basically, as Tanuja ma'am was also talking about moonlighting and how it is actually affecting productivity as a whole, and the kind of experience you have in the industry, I just wanted to know, for example, when we talk about different generations. So, for example, if we talk about our generation sitting here, we tend not to work in morning. We like to work in afternoon or late night, and like we were talking about moonlighting. But when we talk about earlier generations, they want to do their work as early as possible. So there are challenges which are faced in terms of so there are different expectations. So how the balancing act can be done, and whether these challenges are there, and how it is actually done to make it balance.
The question is about moonlighting, right?
The question is about balancing expectations of different generations.
Okay.
So I just gave you an example, like moonlighting is an example.
I see.
All right.
Okay. I thought the entire panel was discussing the same point about balancing expectations. I don't know what more I can add to this. I think it's about understanding the expectations of our employees in the organization and the kind of talent that I am drawing from, the pool from which I am drawing and the pool to which I am losing. Right? So if I have understood the exit information, why people are really leaving. When employees leave, rarely they tell the truth and they leave. Why they left. Sometimes they may not know actually what really triggered a change. So we need to really understand why we are losing people. That gives us a lot of insight. And then there is a sudden change which is happening even in the last 3-4 years, 5 years, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. There is a change in the expectations of the people who are graduating out of campuses. The question that we asked, how many of you like flexibility, the number of show of hands is today about 90%. If this question would have been asked in 2019, this was not in the debates that time, right? So if we ask the same question, possibly the show of hands would have been just 20% or 30%. So things are changing over time. Today, so much of conversation has happened about well-being and mental health. Sometimes I feel, are we really exaggerating a point? It is important, but sometimes are we taking it to the extremes? The flexibility is important, but are we taking it to the extremes? So these are thoughts. So we need a balance. Clearly, we need a balance. We can't go to say that, okay, you do moonlighting, for example, you do moonlighting, whatever. Whatever comes to your mind, you do, you are completely flexible. Can we say that? There are, of course, some organizations who have brought out moonlighting as a policy. I'm just giving this as an example. Okay, so I think for the HR team, it's super critical if they are really building an organization of repute, organization which will last for 50 years, 60 years, 40 years, 100 years, whatever. If they're looking for a long-term value delivery, sustainable organization, they need to really make this deeply ingrained in the HR practices that I have to continuously discover I need to listen to what my people are looking for and how the socio-economic changes are happening in the areas or in the pools that I am drawing talent from and to the pools that I am losing talent to. If I am able to understand these three things and triangulate them, the policies, systems, and processes will evolve. So that's my response.
Thank you, sir, for that.
But it was a very strategic and deep question. Good to see that it's coming from young people like you all. So, so all the best to all of you guys. Yep, more questions. Whatever.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sneha Junjunwala, and I'm from MBA HRM batch of 24-26. Thank you, everyone, for such an insightful session, first of all. So my question is, since every generation nowadays is going through a transformative journey, so it's regarding reverse mentoring. What if someone from Gen X is of some different opinion or is rigid to change and doesn't want to go through that process of reverse mentoring because of maybe difference of opinion or different ways of handling a situation? How do we handle that situation when there is difference of opinion and the person from generation X is not being able to understand us or maybe not go through that process of reverse mentoring?
I think the short answer is the choice is the individuals. But the important point is it going to help him or her? When you see value, you see something is adding value, you generally opt for it. If the person sees that this is not adding value, then the person will not opt for it. Two choices. Either you say that, okay, the person who is coaching me is probably not good enough, right? You change the mentor. But if you feel that everybody is, no one is adding any value, then probably you are not even open for that.
Yeah, just to add on a lighter note, earlier our PPTs would start with vision, mission, objective. Now our PPTs are starting with what's in it for me. So as an employee, first slide, as a manager, second slide. So this question of what's in it for me is coming out, and if you can articulate the value, like he said, then I'm sure they will be able to enable them better.
Just a quick addition. I feel tempted to respond to this question. This happens in our families, at our homes, right? There are differences of opinion. What do? I mean, we fight with our parents. Parents want to impose something on children. Children want to demand something from family, and so on. It's just an example. Or it could, if a family has got 4 generations, there could be different kinds of debates or differences of opinion. So what happens in families? So everybody makes some compromise and they stay together. If there is no way of staying together, they separate, right? They separate ways. So the same happens in organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Manushka Paul from MBHRM, batch of 24-26. Thank you so much, panelists, for the enriching session. So my question is, how can companies ensure that flexible work policies are seen as fair and equal to everyone, regardless of all the age groups?
I'll first take that point. Firstly, policies are not made basis age group. Policies are made cutting across all workforce. So in for every company, there is a different hierarchy. So it's by tenure. So age group is not, in fact, age as a factor is not even a disclosable, point from an HR point of view. You cannot, there are certain confidential data for that is not supposed to be shared, and age is one of it. So we don't share age related data. So from that point of view, any policies or processes that are created are always taken for a global implementation, taking into fact that you will touch base all the job, all the tenure levels inside the company, across all locations, irrespective of the age. So that's not a factor, is what I would say. I'm not sure if anyone, deviates from my opinion.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That answers my question.
I think we have one more question.
Good afternoon, panel. This is Ayush from HRM batch of 2325. So my question is that as teams move to international location, how do you ensure that they are culturally agile? For example, a culture might be high on context and low on individualism. So how you manage these changes that happen? Thank you.
I think in case of international relocations, a lot of organizations do the culture sensitization. We have, the modules, we have the coaches. Before you go to the location, there a culture sensitization happens. You are assigned buddies in your new location who help you settle down and also introduce you to the different ways of working in that particular location. Those are the things that helps.
If I may add, there are two parts to this. The culture is one of the organization, which is, location agnostic, whether it is on, somewhere outside or in India. So that is location agnostic, the culture of the organization. Then there is always a local culture as well, right? Even in India, we get a holiday for Onam in Kerala, but we don't get here. So that kind of a, cultural sensitivity is there every local. European locations, they have fixed work hours. You have to be sensitive of the red zones. Australia has introduced a new policy that you cannot even call people now. The government has passed a policy. You cannot call them beyond 5 p.m. So the employee chooses to pick up the call. And if he doesn't pick up the call, as a manager, you cannot, demand anything from the employee. It is okay. The employee will not pick up your call after 5 p.m. So that's a policy. So the cultural policies are also, in the various centers that your offices are in.
Can I just add a small point? One little story from my life. So in 1992, I joined L&T as a graduate engineer trainee. My first boss, after all that orientation training, my first boss was a lady in our design and engineering team. She was one of those very rare women managers in the team in L&T those days. She told me, I joined, reported, and whatever happened the first few hours, then she took me to the team and she said, okay, this is the new GET who has come, and now you know all these people. I will give you some work. You have to really work with all these people. Whenever you think that you are actually dying and you are not able to finish, you are not able to understand, then you come to me. Don't come to me if you don't understand something. You try to find out, find the solution. So I was given one project, Madhya Pradesh State Electricity Board. We were doing a fly ash handling system. So the electrical and instrumentation design work was given to me. I have not seen one electricity generation plant that time. So she told me, you are now in charge of this 1.47 crore project, electrical and instrumentation design work, 1992. Okay. So I have been introduced to all the team. I was so angry with her. In my heart, mind, I will tell all my friends that she is like the worst manager that one can have, and L&T is such a reputed company. How the company is surviving is kind of okay with such a thing. And what training we were given in the induction orientation, we went to so many places, and now I have been put into this. So I had tough time, I must say that. And L&T those days, 6 days a week we will work. And so I will be carrying loads of file to home to study and all of that. So when I look back, I thought it was a wonderful contribution that she has done in my life, in shaping me up as a person. maybe someone else in my position would have also struggled, could have revolted and done whatever one typically does. But I chose my path. She chose her path as a manager. So I'm just giving this as an example of this cultural point that your question was about cultural acclimatization. When you go overseas, how do you handle it and stuff like that? So I don't think there is only one path to success. There are many paths to success. So just be open. As young people, I'm not sure if any of your managers does this today to any of you, how you'll respond to it. Maybe you'll write on Glassdoor, you'll write on Ambition Box. The moment the manager says like this, you'd probably run to the HR team boss and say that what the hell is happening? This is not the company I wanted to join. But I can tell you, I'm incredibly grateful to her for really making me, I was from a small town and, had tough, sort of the migration to the corporate world was huge for me, right? So I think I'm incredibly grateful to her. But this is the managerial style that she had adopted. There may be many other methods. This is just a story, a real story of my life. But just be open. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
So thank you, sir. I think it's one of the success mantra for you as a students. Now I request, ma'am, if you can give a final success mantra for your balancing the flexibility and productivity.
Okay. So success mantra, I would say, I have to speak from the point of view of all of you. Otherwise, there are multiple, books in your library that will give you the success mantra. But from your point of view, there is a nice book called Atomic Habits, if any of you have read it. Yeah, so that's also one of my favorite book because it tells you to make those small changes to create a bigger impact. And I think that's my formula for your success mantra as well. If every day of your life you make 1% change for a year, it says that you will end up making 37% change at your overall level. So in a nutshell, that's your success mantra. Please make small changes for any bigger transformation to happen and make change every day. So try to be a better version of yourself every day.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, your final success mantra.
I think I will agree with Tanuja. Keep revamping yourself. I'll give a very, very small example. I don't know if your generation has seen Sachin Tendulkar grow up and play. My generation has seen that. If you look at him, the way he was playing in his earlier part of his career versus how he played at the later part of his career, a person who could hit any ball outside off stump, who will square cut, played an innings of 241 at Adelaide, leaving every single ball outside off stump. Or a person who was so classical, learning to play paddle sweep. So keep revamping yourself. The world is moving at a very, very fast pace. If you don't revamp yourself, you'll be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to sum up, it was a highly insightful discussion and very excellent points and intuitive points which came out. One was you need to adapt yourself with the changing landscape of work. Second is that the productivity and flexibility are not the two sides of the coins and they are not as a loggerheads. And third is that your diversity of preferences has changed. So as a HR person, you need to create an enabling structure. And rightly said, you need to revamp yourself. So a small change can bring a lot of your process improvement in your organization. So with this, I will sum up and thank all the panelists. Over to you, Linda.
Thank you very much.
Our heartfelt gratitude to the panelists for such an enriching discussion and to Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary for seamlessly moderating the session.
We now invite our Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Andrew Datta, to felicitate the dignitaries on the dais. Opportunity to introduce you to all our respected panel members and our esteemed moderator.
We are pleased to welcome Mr. Prakash Chandra Panda, who is currently serving as the President and Group CHRO of India Power Corporation Limited. With over 32 years of rich corporate experience in the entire gamut of HR, he has been associated with large and reputed organizations in the telecom, retail and manufacturing sectors, working across multiple geographies. Mr. Panda has been associated with Bharti Airtel, Reliance Communications, SR Group, Pantaloons Retail Limited, Indian Aluminum Limited and JK Synthetics, and has played an instrumental role in the transformation through building high-performance HR and leadership teams.
Next, we would like to welcome Ms. Sarah Isabel Kelman, a seasoned HR professional with over 2 decades of experience in the corporate sector. Currently leading the L&D vertical at Manipal Health Enterprises Limited, Ms. Kelman brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. Prior to her current role, she spent over 2 decades at Jet Airways Private Limited, where she contributed significantly to the organization's HR initiatives. With a passion for people development and a love for travel, Ms. Kelman is a valuable asset to any team.
We are also pleased to welcome Mr. Shyam Chaudhary, Chief BHR at Tata Power Odisha, a distinguished HR professional with a strong background in engineering and management. With over 22 years of experience in diverse sectors such as construction, manufacturing, power generation and power distribution, Mr. Chaudhary has a proven track record of success. A graduate of IIT Kharagpur, he has held key positions at renowned organizations like Tata Power, ACC and L&T. As a research scholar at IIM Kashipur, Mr. Chaudhary has contributed to the field through his publications and conference presentations. His commitment to excellence and his ability to drive positive change have been truly transformative in the organizations he has been a part of.
This session will be moderated by our esteemed faculty member, Dr. Shubhra Patnaik. Dr. Patnaik, an electrical engineer holding a degree from NIT Rourkela and a postgraduate in HR and Finance from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. With 16 years of experience in consulting and academia, she specializes in performance management, job evaluation and talent assessment. A certified assessor and a published researcher, her work focuses on organizational justice and employee performance. Dr. Patnaik is also a passionate trainer and writer and enjoys singing, playing and writing stories for her son. I request Dr. Sujitra Pal, faculty member, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, to welcome the dignitaries on the dais with a floral bouquet. And now I hand over the session to you, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, MCs. I wish Professor Sanjay were here and I could have sat there and enjoyed the session like all of you. Unfortunately, Professor Sanjay couldn't join us, hence I'm filling in for him. So, as I was wondering how to go about this discussion,
I happened to speak to Priyadarshini ma'am, and she told me that in the second half, nobody is really interested in concepts. You have to keep it light. Hence, I have taken her advice, and I would want to share stories with you, stories from my own life. We have been talking about diversity and that too generational. Raised in a joint family with 22 members once upon a time, I have always been living in a multi-generational family, in a multi-generational system. Communication has always been a challenge, right? Talk about workforce, talk about organizations. It is not different from what we experience in our families and in our society. Today, being a mother to a 10-year-old boy who comes from the alpha generation, I have further challenges. Fundamentals, which I had never questioned, are being questioned today. Fundamentals like, why do I have to learn multiplication tables when Alexa can answer them all? Right? And when I say, what will you do when Alexa is not available, it is I get to hear that you are being regressive. Because you have never, when you were in my age, you did not know that Google existed. And I asked him, do you know when Google came to existence, right? This continues. This keeps on going on. And there is no end to it. Running away from his questions, his statements, and his perceptions about things where he believes that you cannot live without internet. But I have lived without internet, right? When I come here, I have no respite because here I have all of you, my dearest students. And I have your perceptions, your expectations, which many a times are very different from what my expectations were as a student, right? So I tell one of my students to be careful while walking on the corridor because he is constantly walking, looking at his phone, messaging. Even without looking at me, he answers, I can cross the road like this. Corridor is just a cakewalk, right? So that is all of you. So workplace, workforce is not any different. We have different expectations. We look at the same thing with different perceptions. We have different communication styles, different work styles. Somebody told I like working in the night, not in the morning. My classes, unfortunately, are all at 9:45. I do not know what to say, right? So I wouldn't stand between you and your panelists anymore. They are plethora of knowledge about how things are going on, how generational diversity is being managed in their organizations. See, these are fundamental questions. Gen X believed in getting the work done. Gen Y today looks at social networks at workplace. That is very important. Gen Z looks at techno-social networks at workplace. Technology is a part of your life like a person that makes a difference, right? You talk to Alexa. Alexa is your best friend at times. At least I see that in the alpha generation where people are angry with Alexa, people are happy with Alexa, people spend their time with Alexa. That shocks me because I am not familiar with it. But is there anything wrong in it? I don't know. I have had the privilege as a school. We have been working with Sarah, with Shamsa, and I know that they have diversity as their corporate strategy. In all the training learning modules that we have worked with them, we have always emphasized on generational diversity. And this panel is different because all the panelists here come from an industry which is into essential services. We so much talked about flexibility and work from anywhere. In the inauguration and in the panel 1 discussion, that option does not exist for any of them. because they are into essential services. So their perspectives would be different. I would want to start with a broad question, Sir and Sarah. What are the biggest challenges that you are facing in terms of generational diversity in your workplace, in your industry, and what are some of the common methods that you are adopting in your organization to address them? So we will start with Sarah.
Good afternoon. And I hope you are still awake after the good lunch that you have had. And thanks, Shubhra, for that question. Okay. So basically, yes, the workforce that we work in, as Shubhra said, is essential services. And since I'm from the healthcare, it is an industry that communication plays a very vital role, because generations are of different generations. It's just not of the workforce, but also of the people that they interact with. And having said that, a top-down approach, or for that matter, communication from both sides is very important. The thing is that we don't listen today. Our listening stance is very short, okay? And that is seen more so in the younger generation. You would like the information to be given to you crisp and as fast as possible so that you're able to grasp it. Whereas maybe somebody from an older generation would tend to be elaborate on what they're giving you. They may extend a little more, and that tends to upset or challenge the younger lot. So we need to ensure that we bridge that gap of communication. Communication is also not just about a face-to-face or a two-way communication. We are also moving into the digital space, and the digital space is moving really fast. And in that space as well, yes, the younger generation, the Gen Z, the millennials are able to connect faster. To some extent, yes, Gen X is catching up, and they need to move also fast to catch up, to be online with what is expected from them. So even though there is generations, each generation is trying to work towards adapting and getting to know each other. And to bridge that gap, the only way to do it is to constantly interact and communicate with one another.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, ma'am and XIM for giving us the opportunity to interact with all of you. So I think I'd like to put it in a little different perspective on that difference or differential generations in the workplace. I think as Subra Madam was telling, this multi-generation is not a new thing actually in our society. It has been existed since long. I mean, if we consider the industry, even since first industrial revolution, it is there. But probably the participation of multi-generation is very much prominent nowadays. So the first point I think we need to understand that whether is it a problem statement or it is a strength actually. So what actually we understand that why employees actually comes to the workforce. I mean, why organization hire different kind of employees in the organization. Generally we hire employees for their experience, their network, information network, their knowledge base. Now, if we see in this era of artificial intelligence or generative AI, I think the knowledge base is no more a very difficult task. I mean, AI has brought all of us into the same platform now. So it's not the differentiating factor between Gen Z, Gen Y, Alpha, Millennium, or older generations. The differential factor is not that knowledge or the information, but definitely the diversity in the exposure they bring and the expertise. So, as it was mentioning that in a joint family, we used to live in a healthy life actually, I must say. Because we are actually taught certain basic core values, which was actually the reason of a team or a diversity to manage. Now, same is applicable to the organization also. I think in an organization, the leadership always expect that teams should be working in a seamless manner, the teams should desire for a common target in a time-bound manner. So I think the focus should be more on that, not the technical knowledge part, but on the more on the behavioral competencies part or behavioral aspects actually. So as I see that subject was the synergizing culture, probably I would like to differ on that subject line. I think it would be not that synergizing, but calibrating our organizational culture. That will be more appropriate, because we have to create such an organization where actually will allow everyone to speak freely, everyone share their thoughts, and everyone will respect each other's views actually, perspectives. And the challenge is there actually. Because if our core values of respecting each other's, core values of collaborations are not there, and the core values of I versus we, if all these things are actually predominantly visible in the organization, then definitely it will be a challenge. Organization wise, definitely, as we are doing in Tata Group also, how we are actually addressing these issues. Knowledge is not the differentiating factor, at least in the power sector, what I can see, because it's a purely technical knowledge. So that's why that differentiation is not with the technical knowledge. It's only on that behavioral competencies. The differentiation is created. So probably we are actually promoting, or rather calibrating our organizational culture where differentiation will be accepted. So creating rewards and recognitions policy for the team, not for the individual, or demonstrating some diverse approach or diversity by the employees or as a team. I think those are the certain parameters probably we are trying to bring into the organization in terms of policy formulation, in terms of designing the structure. In fact, the industry which I am representing, the power sector, is historically known to be a bureaucratic organization. And if you see presently we are hiring a lot of trainees, graduate engineers, diploma trainees, management trainees. So there is a stark difference between their working style and in a bureaucratic organizations. So the approach are definitely, one is the leadership part. Our leaders are demonstrating that kind of diversity in their all actions and behavior. But as an HR manager, I think we have more control on our policies and also on the organizational structure design. And that is the way we are trying to address these issues. Recently, we have announced one policy, that incentive scheme, that one business unit wise the recognitions and incentives will be given to the employees. So basically, we are trying to promote that teamwork actually. Because at the end of the day, again I am repeating that fact that Gen Z or the newly joined employees in the workforce, they should not be in a perception that they are much more informative, their network is very strong, their knowledge base is very high. I think those are the wrong perceptions. You do not have that differentiation skills. So you have to enter to the workforce and you have to demonstrate those the core values to successfully work in a team. And as I mentioned, that if we actually encase that diversity in the team, then actually the gain will be much more. So this multi-generation in a team should not be considered the source of conflict. Rather, I must say it is a source of strength. It is a complementary to each other. All these generations are actually to be considered as a complementary to each other. So I think I will conclude in that way only. It's not the conflict but the complementary.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon everyone. Thanks to XIM and the assistant, HR assistant for inviting me, Dr. Anil Datta, faculty members and esteemed panelists, dear students. I think very thought-provoking topic. Since morning we have been hearing a lot of good insight. I have a little different insight to this multi-generational workforce. When I started my career in 1991, it was JK group, and I was quite blessed that I worked in organization one after the war. So how in that era, in a physical meetings also, they are building a synergy, and it is a great insight you get for leadership, strategy, and teamwork. So every day when they post war, they will meet, they will discuss about the these aspects, and this powerful synergy was built so that the combination of strength of each of the people, each of the warriors were used to achieve the goal. So if it was there, obviously we are also taking a lot of insight, as you rightly said that in the if you look at our family side also, yes, I think I was also born brought up in a multi-generation kind of thing, and we call in Orissa, you look at great grandfather, grandfather. In Western we call it Nati, Suti, Puti and all. People are very happy if they have got 3-4 generations in their family. So that's the kind of excitement. Today in generation also, why this multi-generation is coming to forums, I want to tell you. What the, why it was not there earlier, why it is there today. In 1954, the life, if you look at the longevity trend, it was 54 years in 1980 and currently it is 70 years in 2020. So that means every decade, 4.5 year of longevity is getting added. So therefore, the retirement age was 58 long back. Right now, post-retirement, all of us will have life minimum 10 years. So therefore, the organization need to gear up. How you are giving actually, what kind of support system you are building, so that you are not only preserving the skills, but also using the wisdom and experience of the older generation. There are a lot of tacit knowledge which cannot be transferred, so therefore they are required. And my appeal to all this young generation who are here, look at from your perspective that all of you, maybe you, your spouse in future will be working, so nobody is there at home to giving care. So this generation will be working in the office and giving care at the home also. So you need to look at, now that nuclear family, and everybody looking that can I get somebody from my family member to come and support my kids. So that is basically the need of the hour. And how this multi-generation can be effective, and I have a lot of success stories here. Currently I am working the organization which is 105-year-old. So it is 5 generations, not only in the workplace, there are maybe 3 to 4 generations working. But like look at a culture and synergy, we continuously build a culture of continuous improvement, culture of innovation, and similarly, how do you build a synergy is basically looking at the strength of each of the guy. Don't look at the limitations of people. If you are looking at limitations, definitely you will not get the best out of the people. If you want to get the personal best of everybody, look at the limitation, look at the the combination of the strength and leverage that to achieve the goal. That is how we are doing. And one biggest change which is happening right now in the marketplace also, a retention culture. So if you look at maybe 20 years back also and today also, we at a personal level I do practice one thing is have a clear retention mindset, be it for the customer, be it for the employee. The moment you are instilling a talent and retention mindset in the organization, you are constantly hiring a lot of good talent and you are also in a position to retain the talent. And therefore, it is across generation, you can leverage the strength of these people. And I'll tell you, I put a lot of matrices to make sure the retention is high. For example, the leadership attrition, it has to be single digit. If hyper repo, the exceptional contributor, it has to be single digit. That means you are retaining 90% plus of the employees who are in the hyper repo. Leadership, you are retaining more than 90%. New journeys within 6 months, within 1 year, you are retaining 90%. The moment you have a segmented approach in everything, your retention will be very high. And the moment your retention is very high, I think it will also build a sustainable culture in the organization, and therefore the profitability or whatever ensure. Second change which is happening is you would have studied that people always look for organization. What is the objective of the organization is profitability. I think profit is a bad one, and today therefore people are talking about sustainability. If you look at companies like Tata, they always talk about sustainability. But underlying myth is, if you are building great managers and there are engaged employees across generation, then there will be sustainable growth. Sustainable growth means assured profit. So don't talk about the profit, talk about attracting and retaining the customer, attracting and retaining the talent, and get the best out of everybody across the generation, and build the synergy in the culture. And the communication has to be also the way people want. For example, older generation always look for a physical meeting. The young generation, they will always look for a WhatsApp or any kind of message, instant messaging. Use that communication platform to leverage this and get the best out of everybody.
Sir, thank you. I think you spoke about a lot of metrics that we could use to see how are we doing on managing with this generational diversity better. I'm just curious to know, since we talk about one size does not fit all at all, because our expectations are very, very diverse today. For example, I have an example from Snyder, where a person from Gen Z has taken a sabbatical of 3 years to work for the cause of stray dogs. She believes in that. She is passionate about that. And she has left work to follow her passion. I think that would resonate with many of you sitting here as well. I probably would never think of doing that. So, with this kind of setup, so do you think these metrics could also be clustered for various generations, or they can be similar across all?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, ma'am. If you look at what gets improved, what gets measured gets improved, what gets measured improved gets paid or focused. I think if you want to actually build a synergy in the culture and communication, improve the productivity through engaging all the generations. Obviously, matrices has to be different. Say for example, there are a lot of things which are already there in the past, which is great also. For example, look at employee engagement survey, the way it is being done. Be it Gallup, be it Aeronavit, be it Great Place to Work. There are already various dimensions, sub-dimensions are available. But how you are cascading, how you are linking with each of the KPIs is extremely important. So one is employee engagement survey, and second, how do you link it as a SR process capability kind of indexing, so that it is scalable and it is replicable. Okay. So and some of the examples I want to give that in any employee engagement survey, you normally get the view perspective of the young generation, the middle age and the old generation, and you look at the attrition trend, link with how it is a surrogate measure, kind of thing. Similarly, you look at each of the generation, their expectations are different. What is important if you want to build a very quality culture and build a synergy, need to understand what is the expectation of the young generation, what is the middle aged and what is the older generation, and accordingly all the HR processes and policies need to be changed. Say for example today, it's an accepted fact that promoters like Narayan Murthy also mentioned that I think everybody should work for 70 hours, that means 12 hours a day. Many promoters feel that I will pay him for 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours and get job done by 12 hours. Young people like you always feel that, like somebody very rightly said that, can I start my day in the afternoon? So it is 4 hours of job and gets paid for 12 hours actually. So that's a challenge, that's a conflict that is there. But I think more importantly, flexibility and synergy. This synergy can be always looked at from value addition perspective. It is not the amount of work a person is doing, what kind of value addition a person is doing. So I think if you give space to the people, like for example youngster, the people who are in my team, I always leverage the technology using them. For example, you have to do a JD, in 10 minutes you can get a job description also. But in early days we used to spend half a day, 1 day to prepare a JD, because you have to get insight from various people. But in ChatGPT is easily available. The youngsters are the best people, they can always, and they'll be happy. If you want any policy to be done, you tell them that do it in the night, come late to the office. They will be very happy and you get the best output from them. Can you leverage this? But unfortunately the mindset of the older generation still is there that no, I think 9:30 to 6:30 the timing, people need to follow the principles. So therefore, you look at all the matrices, look at hiring. What kind of hiring can be done? You don't hire people for the current role. Do hire for the people for the current and for a future or aspirational role. you don't lose a single talent. If you ask me today, when I was working in Airtel, maybe it is 99, 2004, that is 20, 25 years back, we are hiring every single person, keeping in mind two roles. I don't want to lose a single talent to the competition, because my supremely talented people is there. If I lose to competition will be stronger and I'll do it. So therefore, why don't you retain these people by ensuring that they are hired for two different roles? I'll give a very classic example of recently I had somebody a year back, a chartered accountant. I told him that, maybe for corporate finance I'm hiring you, but you are fitting into accounting role also, that is for the accounts department, and you can be also very successful in the business analyst role. So I've got three roles available for this individual. Why do you think this person leave the organization? So we need to understand the young generation from a perspective that what they want. And secondly also the matrices should be done. I recently met a guy called Sahil Durrani, who is a stand-up comedian, not corporate, it is a HR stand-up comedian. I called him for a event at Calcutta. This guy at the age of 22 started working as a HR professional. From there he became a IT professional after 4 years. And after 7-8 years he became now a stand-up comedian. And he was at a national level wherein the Shekhar Suman and Archana Puran Singh were the judge actually. Just imagine, he is a celebrity now. So in 10 years, in 30 age, 10 years, he has not only 3 profession and 3 careers change already. So as a HR professional, how are you designing the career plan of the individuals now? It will change drastically the way we are thinking. The moment I am planning, like if you look at, I give my example of Airtel, before 2 years only, we normally tell all the managers talented that look, if you have a preferential role or location, please let us know so that you can always transfer. Rather than losing to people to competition, better to lose to other circle. That was our thought. And therefore, proactively, we were retaining a lot of people. But this generation, if you are planning something, you really do not know tomorrow whether the guy is staying or not. So how you are also giving them the avenues within the organization to retain, and build, a kind of culture wherein every single person is being treated, as a talented person, and all the supremely talented person, are you also looking at the earning potential? If you don't look at the earning potential, somebody else will take care of them. So there are a lot of matrices can be done, management systems should be in place, and I'll tell you, it was very well because if you are continuously measuring, you know that where you are looking, where there is a gap. But yes, I think take all the employee engagement survey very seriously, rather than critical about great place to work, every company is getting the certification. Look at what kind of scores continuously year on year you are getting, and where there is a gap, what kind of action plan you are having, so that continuously you are having improvement in the all dimensions and sub-dimensions.
Sir, thank you so much. That was really enriching. Sarah, on the same lines, you keep on tracking your NPS, right, in your organization. And for you, generational diversity is not only your workforce, but also your customers, your patients. And customers who are aggrieved, and that is why they are there, right? So what do you do there? What is Manipal doing to handle that diversity?
Thanks, Shubha. That's a good question. So basically, yes, it's very important for us to ensure that there is synergy in the organization amongst all generations, as well as you mentioned, that we also have people who we interact with which are from diverse generations that are with us as well. So as a younger lot, or for that matter, any generation, how do I interact with, if I'm a Gen Z, how do I interact with somebody who is from a Gen X? So basically, again, patience, the art of listening, the performance that is required. So even if you look at your NPS, I would take a diversion from that, from there, Subra, okay? So if you look at what we have to say is, if you look at the performance, okay? So yes, it always used to be pen and paper, then everything moved online. So basically your performance matrix was done online. And now we're looking at something different. So should it be just once in 6 months? Should it be once a year? Or should there be continuous interaction that has to happen between the employee and the employer? So basically it becomes like a every month update as to where do you stand and where do you need to improve. when you look at the NPS, which happens to be the Net Promoter Score of what the patients feel when they do come to our hospitals based on the various generations that come in, yes, there are corrective measures that needs to be taken because it's a very sensitive industry that we are all working in. And we need to ensure that even if they do come to us, are they able to understand the digital platforms? We have a visitation which is available online, which again will facilitate to a certain segment of people, but not to all segments of people. And working in a hospital industry, at some point, everybody still needs to come there. So it does play a very vital role.
Okay. Yes, so I think that kind of answers my question, and I'll come back to you. Shyam sir told something very interesting, which is I versus we. So you spoke about 7 core values. If we track generational values today, we see that though India is a collectivistic country, but the generation Z is more individualistic. They're also more indulgent. Say for example, I go and I see a perfume which I like and I'm willing to buy it, and my mother would definitely tell me that that was not necessary. Okay, why are you spending like this? You should be saving. So the generation which was, say my parents' generation was more long-term oriented in terms of savings. They were not as indulgent, but today, let's forget about me, let's talk about all of you sitting here. Gen Z, you were more indulgent and you were more short-term oriented. You're also more individualistic. So how do we then balance this I versus we at Tata Power?
Hello. So, perfectly said, ma'am. Before I say what we are doing in Tata, I think this point that we are becoming more individualistic, I think this is a larger societal risk we are experiencing, because collectivism was our strength, probably. I personally believe that. So definitely, as a student of management, probably we cannot say that this culture is bad or that culture is bad. So probably the comment from a long-term perspective may not be appropriate. As I said, that becoming individualistic is a loss to our core values of our society. But probably that is the way I am now experiencing that. Time will say what is right or what is wrong. But at least in Tata Group, I have been working in Tata Group for last 15-16 years. Probably, if anybody asks me today, what are my personal value system, probably it is almost same as Tata value system. There is no difference probably. Now, I just want to tell you a very small example. I mean, how actually value systems are actually, inbuilt into our behavioral system. When I was in Gujarat plant, so I used to drive, the driver नहीं था, I used to drive, and तब एज भी थोड़ा कम था, and गुजरात का रास्ता भी बहुत अच्छा था, तो you can understand how I used to drive. So and जब भी मेरा प्लांट का जो मेन गेट मुझे दिखता था, वहाँ पर CCTV कैमरा वगैरह है, तो I change my behavior. Suddenly पूरा सीट बेल्ट ये वो करके पूरा and then गेट के अंदर घुसने के बाद there is a speed limit, and if I do not follow that, तो security से मेरे नाम पे complaint चला जाएगा. So after working 3-4 years, if you see today, even if I am driving in a remote road of Odisha, probably I must ensure the seat belt. Actually, that I have learned from Tata actually. That's why I am telling that that is probably no more personal values, it's all the organizational values. Why I am telling it may be different from Tata Group to any other organization in India, because as Mr. Panda mentioned, we speak about 3, 4, 5th generation in Tata Group also. So when this new generation is actually moving towards more individualistic, probably, I mean that again purely my own understanding, we as a senior of the society, probably we should take some control to moderate this. That is my first personal perspective. That once somebody joins in Tata Group, we force them to fit into the Tata value system. So then, force them means we create that environment. It's not that किसी का gun रख के करने के लिए. Probably we just induct them into that kind of system. Probably collectivism वहाँ पर ज़्यादा strong है. We speak about third generation, fourth generation. We speak about the cross-functional teams. We speak about interdepartmental competition. We speak about departmental incentive schemes. We try to promote that kind of culture where actually we try to promote that we concept actually. And in that our performance management system, we have two parts. 80% is the key result area, that is the task, the technical task. 20% is the key behavioral attributes. And in that key behavioral attributes, there are certain behavioral competencies we give priority. That is the collaboration, learning attitude, all these kind of competencies we try to promote. And those behavioral attributes are very critical while calculating your promotion eligibility. That is not very much relevant for annual increment, but after 3 years or 4 years, when the promotion calculation will come, that will play a very significant role. So every employee understands that what kind of behavior I have to demonstrate. So, and Tata Group, it's a 150 years old organization, so probably we have been trained in that way also. And also I personally are more convinced. So I think that is a society, changes are happening outside the society. We are changing from a more collectivism to that individualistic, as ma'am said. But probably from an organizational perspective, we should have two approaches. One is that when it is a point of core values, it is the organization which has to take control, and organization has to ensure that employee must align with those core values of the organization. And there are some value system values like the peripheral values, which maybe vary from employee to employee, which is happening everywhere. There probably we can be flexible, and that is what also we are trying in Tata Group also. May not be in Odisha, because we are very new in Odisha, at least the distribution business, but in other Tata areas, we have one system called Talent Next. In Talent Next concept, even one 32 years or 35 years boy or girl can become the CEO also. So that options are there. In Tata Group also there is we call passion pursuit. We are speaking about passions. So there are hundreds of options available. Somebody likes singing, somebody likes swimming, dancing, storytelling, गांव में जाके बच्चे को पढ़ाना है स्कूल पे, विलेज में जाके लेडीज को एडुकेट करना है. So there are hundreds of options are there. There is called urban portal. So whatever you like, somebody is really passionate about social works. So please go and do that and enter all details into the portal, and it will be reflected into the annual report that Mr. So-and-so has contributed so much. So your photo will be displayed in the internal portal of the organizations. So those are I must say the peripheral systems actually, peripheral values where organizations needs to be flexible. And in Tata Group, as I was telling, that we are trying, may not be 100% we are able to do it, but as much as possible we are trying to do this. Even we are now coming up with that called second career for our women colleagues. Those who have left the corporate world for some reason, family reason, or for maternity leave, anything. So they are now not working for 5 years, 6 years. Suppose they are just working at home. They want to come back. This is not only Tata Power. Anybody in the society. So now they can apply in Tata. So So we are giving them opportunities. That is also some sort of passion pursuit. So these are the areas probably organization needs to be flexible enough. But when it's a topic of organizational core values, we are giving power actually. Now, I forget, Resam was coordinating with me. So now Resam says, sir, I prefer to take off from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So 2 से 4 बजे कंज्यूमर को पावर नहीं मिलेगा. And Resam is now पैशन परसूट कर रहा है पूरी बीच में, whatever, swimming कर रहा है, whatever. So we cannot compromise there. So there are certain area probably organization has to take full charge. But there are some areas where we can be flexible. So that is the mix way we are trying to manage that. And I think many organizations is also trying to do that way. But if we actually adopt the other side in the name of retention, जिसको रुकना नहीं है ना वो नहीं रुकेगा organizations पे. जिसको छोड़ के जाना है प्लीज जाने दीजिए उसको. कोई ऐसा ये नहीं है कि उनको नहीं रहेगा तो organizations पे पूरा आसमान टूट जाएगा. So the point here is that if somebody finds his own passion in some other organization, let him go, no issue. But the point is if we are not aligning with the organizational value systems, our commitment to our consumers, our commitment to our communities, you are not fit for this organization. आप collectivist हो या individualistic हो, we don't care as an organization. So आप अपना passion आपके पास रखो, first you align with the organization, and then जो delta possible है, it will be done. So you have to accept this reality. Because nowadays, because Gen Z, Gen Y, X, Y, A, B, whatever you comes, you are much more informed. Your network is very strong. You want everything. I mean, those employees want everything at a single time. And also, they want to be the flexibility in the working life. Everything is not possible. So please change that mindset. एक साल 2 साल रहेगा, तीसरा साल जब आप मैनेजर पोजीशन पे बन जाएंगे ना, when you will become the manager, you will start speaking like me. So it happens. So it's a just college pass out का जोश रहेगा. Once you have a target actually. Suppose आपका सारे passions है, and then आपको एक छोटा सा कोई subsidiary company का CEO बना के भेज दिया गया है. Then आपका company तो गया पूरी का समुंदर पे, आप passion pursue करते रहोगे. So that's why I think that balanced approach has to be taken.
I have some 3 minutes before we open this space to students for them to interact with you. Sarah, I just want quick response from you, and sir also. Shyam sir spoke about something very, very important. Certain core values which are non-negotiable and certain peripheral values which could be flexible. So for Manipal, what are some of the core values which are non-negotiable?
So basically the core value would be is to ensure how do we continue with the culture that we have, that everybody feels valued in the organization. Everybody comes from diverse places. Diversity is huge. So we try to ensure that we incorporate everything into the core value. So much so that we become quite flexible with the thing that you don't need to have people or talent coming in from one industry. We end up looking at, or rather we're encouraging more people coming from other industries so that they can bring in a very different viewpoint into the organization. They could set up certain standards, be innovative. It does not matter whether you are from whichever generation, as long as you have the experience and the talent, yes, they are most welcome into the system. The value that we value is that at the end of the day, if you look at it, one size does not fit all. So how do you ensure that with the growth that we are undergoing, that everybody is taken care of, whether it is the reward and recognition system that you're looking at, whether it is the learning and development, because again, that itself is the core of what HR also does do. And how is it that you link that to the organization? Because at the end of the day, when you look at HR, we play a very vital role with regards to the business. So it goes hand in hand. So how aligned are you as an individual or as HR to the organizational business? And how do you make a difference by understanding what the business wants so that you can filter this down all the way to the bottom line of the employees, and they could also in return realize the essence of importance that they play and make a difference to the society and to the organization.
So what would be some core values for your organization?
I think before I go into core value, I think Shyamji, I'd just like to tell one aspect. I'll tell you today, unfortunately, if you look at the power distribution system today, it's a monopoly. So that means customers should come to the Tata Power or maybe CSC or anybody. Actually, we are operating in a parallel licensing wherein two more players are there. Like in telecom, it was only BSNL. So today, this parallel licensing come pan-India. Then you don't have any choice. If you are saying the same thing, that let employee leave, let customer leave, then you are losing the business. And let customer leave, and let employee leave, you also losing the business. What happened in the retail also, as part of retail organization, Future Group, I must tell you that customer retention was very high because employee retention also was high. Because you also know that whenever you go to a nearby store or any store, if that particular individual is there, then only you go, because you know that that guy is not going to cheat you. That's the mindset you are having. So the best of employee will always bring in best of customer delivery mechanism. Therefore, retention of customer is high. And look at, super stuff. 66% retention of the existing customer is there. That means they invest less on attracting the customer because their focus is on retaining the customer, because 66% they come back to them. So they have to make less effort. Just imagine that employee retention is only single digit. My HR team do not have to struggle for getting the replacement, but rather proactively retaining the employee. So this will come when there is a parallel licensing and highly competitive. So what he said is very correct from a current perspective of Tata Power, any other power generation, power distribution companies are coming. Just imagine there are 3 players in Odisha, what is going to happen? And if there is a network share in the power distribution, what is going to happen? Customer exit clause was very different in Reliance, but what happened in Reliance Communication, all of us know. I was also part of the organization, it is no more existence. But because of highly competitiveness, in spite of government support to Jio, Airtel is still doing extremely well. Because the competitiveness is very good, they are able to attract the customer, retain the customer now also, what they used to do 2 decades back, and therefore an Indian company become a global top 3 players in the world actually. So that is my one point, just my perspective. The second perspective, I want to talk about the values. Yes, I think we as an organization, we have got 4 core values. High performance orientation, resourceful and imagination, support employee empowerment, and
at home, we are working with, or rather we are interacting with multiple generations. It's all about us taking a little bit of time out to understand each other. If we're just going to look at it from one lens, then it becomes like my view and it's only my view. But if you take some time out, whether it is Gen Z, Gen Y or Gen X, but we try to sit down to understand the perspective from where the person is coming from, the bridge will already start, the gap will start closing, and then the understanding and the working culture becomes much better. So that is what we will need to do as HR professionals, is try to bridge that gap by communicating more and being open to the other person's perspective as well. It takes both ways.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That answers my question.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Manvi Bindal from MBA HRM, batch of 24-26. Firstly, thank you for such an enriching session. So my question is, organization has started focusing on bridging generational gaps, but certain points of contentions are inevitable. As an HR, what should be our strategies to resolve such contentions, keeping in mind the different generations?
I think, HR is supposed to be the best in managing the conflict. Because there are leaders, there are different generations working, always workplace conflict will be there. But I think we need to understand, learn the art, how do you manage the conflict. And, one thing I strongly believe that every HR person, one quality they should have, one competence is, influencing positivity in the workplace. So, for example, I tell you that, there is always people always look for, whether learning is important and earning is important. I strongly believe that I think learning is extremely important because so you learn, you get an incremental benefit. So more you learn, more will be the money will follow you. That's my thought process. So therefore, when you are able to create positivity, that means you think that you are doing a social service in a corporate sector. The moment you think like this, your delivery will be much better, your understanding, exposure will be much better, and you quickly get a lot of roles, quickly than rest of the people. In the morning there is a discussion happening that whether it is the length of service or, I think it is the depth of experience, the quality of experience, then a length of service in a particular organization that will determine the, concept. Similarly for HR also I want to give some, insight that I think today the organizations are looking for multi-hierarchy, multi-domain leadership. And therefore, a person with 2 years experience also can become a leadership role, a frontline leadership, a location leadership, a domain expertise, and therefore I think the focus is on, the creating positivity in the workplace.
Thank you, sir. That answers my question. Good afternoon, all. I'm Drishti Datta from MBA HRM batch of 24-26. Thank you, panel, for the insightful session. So my question to you is that, since we have rise of remote work in the organization, so how to incorporate the sense of company culture, and also that since we are focusing on multi-generation as strength and not a problem statement, so how do we incorporate the intergenerational communications more? This question is to the whole panel? Yes, okay.
So, I could not get your first point. Second point, can you repeat the first point?
So because of the rise of remote work, how can organizations improve or maintain the strong sense of company culture in the remote work sector?
Okay, so remote work environment you are talking exactly. So I think that's a completely different topic. I mean, the topic of remote working. It is actually applicable for every generation actually. So remote work has its own challenge and also benefits also. But I will try to answer that your second question first. That intergenerational communication, I think, in every organization there are certain set communication process is already there. Which has been evolved over time through trial and error system. So that definitely we need to continue. But the more problem comes when we speak about the new age employees, that generation Z or Alpha, whatever. The major problem what we observe is that the inquisitive mind is actually a challenge, because for senior managers, answering each and every question, maybe sometimes irrelevant questions of the juniors, of the young boys and girls, sometimes I found them feel irritating that why I should explain each and everything to them. So I think for the senior managers, I think that is one very tangible intervention would be that we should train them, the senior management staffs, that we should be more accommodative and more listening to the young generation. That is one part. Similarly, the reverse side also, that young generations, that that perception, I must say, the perception is that older generations, their understanding or their grasp in certain situations which are evolving nowadays may not be so high as like I am. So probably it's an effect of both sides, but the responsibility has to be taken up by the senior who were in the organization. So, and it is happening, this problem is happening. Even also in Tata Group, we have seen that younger generations, they want certain style of communications, but senior managers are not, they're not habituated actually, that kind of questions actually. So, it's there, it's I think only through training part we can resolve that. We are trying also that. Coming to your first point, I think remotely working has a, we call it as a virtual workstation actually. So, it's purely, I believe, that the job requirement wise, there are certain jobs where this flexible or virtual working is not at all possible. You have to be having the physical systems. But as long as there is a possibilities of virtual working method, organizations allow, but the control points are very less there. So that's why, employees are also using those kind of situations in a very unethical way. Some employees working in a remote mode, working with 3-4 organizations, and there is no commitment to the organizations actually. So if situation permits, we should not allow the remote working. But also that's the other side is that for certain situations which arises out, somebody in a large distance for reasons, we should allow that. Somebody, there are I know in Bhubaneswar also, in fact I have experienced one women colleague, she did not opt for maternity leave. She was actually stressing me, sir, मैं घर पे बैठ के काम करूँगा. So we should allow that. That flexibility should be there. It's only that how much managerial control we should have. It's the judicious call as an organization has to take. There is nothing right or wrong as far as this part is there. Until and unless it is actually negatively impacting your organization or the discipline or the culture, probably we can keep the flexibility. As I mentioned in my speech, that the peripheral value systems, if it is possible, we should allow that. And many organizations are doing it also.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, somebody else.
If the losses, T&D and AT&C losses are less, customer will get the benefit. Say for example, in telecom industry, when I joined in 99, the outgoing calls are 16 rupees, incoming calls are 10 rupees. So it is only for the high level customers only. But today everybody can afford because there is more than 90% tele density is there. Because of the parallel licensing of 4 operators there, so it is highly competitive. You are getting better services with less pay. Internet services also has become cheaper because of Jio. Similarly, power also, if they look at generation cost versus distribution, there is a huge gap because of the losses. So possibly customer will be more benefited out of this. Similarly, if you look at the medical profession also, on a lighter note, I want to tell you, some of you have heard Bakasura syndrome by, right? So Dr. Devdutt Patnaik, who is the chief mycologist, and in fact I had the pleasure of working with him in Future Group. So he talks about if Prakash Pandey with 33 years of experience is hunger for money, and the young students they are also hungry for money, how the hunger from the world will go. So if you look at in the corporate, most of the people there is no retirement age, आपका expiry date है नहीं. So how it will happen? So therefore, more earlier doctors or even politicians were doing social service. Therefore, government hospital treatments also are much better. So today, I think there is a mix and match. I think as I also agree, being a private sector, all of us are public sector, essential public utility, hospital. Obviously, some percentage is being paid CSR, but I think more and more government, the infrastructure has to be also very, very effective the way private hospitals are there. The moment it is there, most of the people who are not able to afford also can afford.
Students can ask more questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ayushi Anjali from HRM, batch of 24-26. Thank you for such an enlightening session. So my question to you is, can you please share some examples of successful mentoring program that help people of different generations learn from each other?
No, I am not, the answer is not ready-made available, I am just thinking actually, but your question is really good. You are asking actually that what are the available models or methods of mentoring available cross-generation wise? That is you are asking. So, I don't know how to respond to you, but I can share you one of the practice which we follow in Tata Power. That is, we call reverse mentoring. Our Honorable MD, Dr. Praveen Sinha, is very passionate about this reverse mentoring. So, how this works actually? So, when the GEPs are joined, the graduate training engineer trainees, so we just form them in small groups, 5 or 6 engineers, and they are given some assignment. The assignment is that they will teach the seniors in the organization. So they will, these 5 GETs, they will select one somebody head or.
Due to the paucity of time, we'll only be able to take one more question.
Very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Rabri Dara from the MBA HRM batch of 24-26. Thank you so much for such an insightful and thought-provoking session. So my question is, given India's strong family-centric culture, how can HR professionals balance the need of the employees from like different generations while respecting their familial commitments?
Please repeat it.
Given India's strong family-centric culture, how can we as HR professionals balance the need of the employees from different generations while respecting their familial commitments?
Right, so I like to answer this question. Again, it's on my own experience. I was at that time working in Jharkhand, Maithon. I was maybe 34, 35 years age, and my elder son probably 2 years or 3 years at that time. So, and they used to stay at my native place. It's a different city. So suddenly I got a call from my mother that postman came and he is asking that there is a parcel for Mr. Chaudhary. So मैं बोला तो फिर ले लीजिए, मेरे नाम पे कुछ होगा। बोला नहीं, तुम्हारा नाम पे नहीं बोल रहा है, वो सुब्रदीप चौधरी मेरा बेटा के नाम पे बोल रहा है। बोला वो तो अभी 2 साल का है, उसका नाम किसको कहाँ पता? बोला मैं बोला फोन दीजिए पोस्टमैन को। बोला हाँ सर, ये तो सुब्रदीप चौधरी का नाम है। तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा था जस्ट। तो बोला क्या है, खोल के देखो। देयर इज ए बुक, पेन, एक छोटा सा गेम, बच्चे का जो खिलौना होता है, एंड एक अच्छा सा ग्रीटिंग्स कार्ड। तो एंड रिटन बाय आवर एमडी ऑफ टाटा पावर। सो मैं नेक्स्ट सैटरडे जब घर गया, मैं पूरा अच्छे से खोल के देखा। यू नो, मेरा मदर, अभी भी माय मदर अभी भी सबको बोलता रहता है कि वो मिस्टर चौधरी के नाम पे कुरियर आया था। मतलब वो जो 2 साल का बच्चा, तो मिस्टर चौधरी के नाम पे कुरियर आया, वो उनके लिए एक वेरी प्राइड फीलिंग है, माय मदर के लिए। सो somebody in Tata Power level HR में जो भी था, उसने सोचा होगा ना कि if I actually able to hit there, मेरे तो छोड़िए, मेरा मदर को भी एंगेजमेंट पे लिंक कर दिया। आई थिंक these are the innovative ways. So in fact इसका लाइटर साइड भी है। तो उसका बहुत दिन बाद मैंने एमडी से मिला था मुंबई में कोई एक प्रोग्राम पे, तो ऐसे ही बातचीत होते होते बोला और क्या सोच रहे हो शाम, क्या कुछ करने के लिए। मेरा दिमाग तो अभी भी है, इवन आई स्पीक टुडे, 20 साल के बाद 15 साल के बाद सर बोल रहा हूँ। मैं बोला सर वो जो आपका इनिशिएटिव था वो अभी बंद हो गया, उसको चालू करते सर, इट वाज अ रियली गुड। तो उनका लाइटर साइड में था, ठीक है कितना तुम्हारा टाटा पावर बहुत बड़ा हो गया ना, बहुत लास्ट 10 इयर्स में टाटा पावर हैज ग्रोन इन लाइक एनीथिंग। बोला कि बजट कितना तुम्हारे पास, बजट उतना है, बोला ठीक है बजट मैनेज कर लेंगे सर। सो माय पॉइंट इज, आप बोला ना कि हाउ फैमिली वैल्यूज का साथ लिंक करते हैं, इट्स ए वेरी 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 प्रोमिनेंट एग्जांपल जो इट्स लिंकिंग फ्रॉम माय होम टू माय ऑफिस। इवन टाटा पावर में हम लोग चालू किया था, जब भी टाटा में एथिक्स इज ए वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग कोर वैल्यूज, हम लोग उसको ये करते हैं। तो सपोज ऑफिस में कुछ आप एक अच्छा सा एथिकल काम किया है, जैसे हम लोगों का लाइनमैन होता है ना, व्हेन आई वाज इन राजस्थान, हम लोग का जो लाइनमैन जो घर में लाइन देता है आप लोगों का बिजली, उनको किसी ने कुछ 200 रुपया ब्राइब देने का कोशिश किया था, आई रिमेम्बर स्टिल। तो उसने रिजेक्ट किया, बोला कि नहीं चाहिए, ये मेरा काम है। तो वो मैसेज घूमते फिरते मेरे पास आया, आई कॉल्ड दैट लाइनमैन one day in our head office in Rajasthan, and I called his parents also. So ऑफिस में बैठ के उसको थोड़ा एक अच्छे से प्राइज गिफ्ट दिया, सबके साथ परिचय करा दिया, बातचीत कराया, फोटो लिया, उसको फोटो चिपका दिया। वो लाइनमैन लाइफ टाइम के लिए एंगेज हो गया, लाइफ टाइम के लिए, बिकॉज उसका पेरेंट्स के सामने उसको रिकॉग्नाइज किया। सो आई थिंक दोज आर द इनोवेटिव idea but HR can actually make a significant difference for an employee.
We wish we could have continued and could have kept listening to all your stories, but we will have to close the discussion here. To summarize, though I started complaining about my son at my home, and about all of you, my dear students here, because you keep on bringing in situations to me which I am not familiar to, I would like to say you at the end that life is very, very incomplete without my son at my home and all of you here. So you bring in that magical balance to our lives. Organizations are not different. We bring in the magical balance in organizations. Harvard Business Studies has research which says that 35% more productive. How can you become 35% more productive? That is by leveraging generational diversity, right? So how do we ensure this balance? Taking cues from all our panelists, I would just like to summarize in one line. We have to make a shift. And where is the shift? The shift is from quantity to quality, from speaking to listening, from not accepting to internalizing, understanding, from holding on to probably let go at times, and from I to we. That is from Shamsar. And that would do the magic. Thank you all.
Our heartfelt gratitude to the panelists for such an enriching discussion, and to Dr. Shubhra Patnaik for a thought-provoking moderation of the session.
We now invite our Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Andrew Datta, to felicitate the dignitaries on the dais.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the closure of the HR Symposium 2024. The event gave us an opportunity to participate in thought-provoking and insightful discussions, with insights coming from the gems in the field of HR in India.
I would like to invite our Associate Dean, School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, Dr. Maushami Padi, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Esteemed guests and speakers, Dean School of HRM, Professor Andrew Datta, guests from media, faculty colleagues and my dear students. As we draw close to the end of the HR Symposium 2024 on bridging generational gaps, harmonizing a diverse workforce, it is my honor and privilege on behalf of the School of HRM and on my behalf as well to propose a vote of thanks. I cannot thank our esteemed panelists and moderators who are the reason we have had a star-studded Symposium 2024. Thank you so much, dear guests, for making time for us, traveling from afar, and sharing your invaluable knowledge. Your insights have sown the seeds of thought that will undoubtedly inspire many future conversations here. We deeply appreciate your contribution to the Symposium 2024. Our school is a reflection of its leadership, and we are truly grateful for the guidance and vision of our Vice Chancellor, Father Anthony Arunduri SJ, who has shaped our institution. Thank you, Father, for your unwavering dedication and inspiring leadership. We are indebted to Registrar Father S. Anthony Raj for providing the administrative support through his team. I would also like to thank our Dean, Professor Andrew Datta, for being the guiding light and for his ever-abiding guidance. Symposium 2024 would not have been what it is but for its faculty coordinator and for the wonderful moderation that she did today, Professor Subra Patnaik. We are indebted to the support extended by Mr. Digambar Rao, Ms. Sridevi Paricha and Mr. Jagan. They have been continually working in the back end overseeing the travel of guests and facilities for our students. We wish to thank our friends from media who made it here to provide coverage to the Symposium 2024. On behalf of School of HRM, thank you Team Zamar for yet another successful event. Thank you Team Illuminatics for capturing the moments of the Symposium and connecting us to our media friends. Last but not the least, I wish to extend my thanks to the School of HRM family, my faculty colleagues and students who have been with us throughout the event today and have made it a true success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We now request everyone to rise for the national anthem.
भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव तव आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे।
On behalf of the School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, and ZIMAR, the HR Association of XIM University, I thank you all for joining us for the HR Symposium 2024 and helping us in making it a grand event. We thank you for your cooperation and we wish you all a very pleasant evening.
I request the first years to be seated while the leaders take their leave.
I request the student POCs to escort the guests. And I also request the Team ZIMAR and junior members to stay back.